Race fans, welcome to Texas Motor Speedway. I'm Andre Grambush, joined alongside Chris Curtis, and we are here for Through Wide TV. The 100% Cup Series is going to be kicking off their round of 8. You know, they say everything's bigger in Texas except for the playoff field. We went from 12 to 8, and what a cutoff race it was last week, and I think we're going to be expecting just as much action this week here at Texas. Well, Chris, great to have you in the booth. First of all, thanks for joining us, and I think you're going to be in for a pretty good show. But what are you looking forward to here at Texas?
Looking forward to the speeds. I mean, definitely the high speeds they can get to on this track, and the heat of the track is going to elevate that a little bit. I mean, you're in Texas; everything's a little bit hotter in Texas as well as it is a little bit bigger. And with the temperatures the way they are, the asphalt the way it is, these cars can get upwards 200 miles an hour pretty easily. This should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what these guys can do. Pretty skilled drivers in this field, as I've seen in previous races. So it's going to be a lot of fun as the playoff field shrinks and things get a little bit tighter at the front of the standings.
It's going to be a lot of fun indeed. Practice has just saw the checkered flag, so we're going to be moving on to the grid. And speaking of the grid, let's go ahead and run through that real quick. I'll go ahead and take 1 through 10, Chris, and I'll hand it off to you.
Sounds
on
good.
The pole this week, Bryson Hicksbaugh reclaims the pole for the first time in, well, I think the first time in the playoffs. He is on the top of the board with a 29.42, just edging out former Coke Series driver Adam Benefield, who's going to be starting on the outside of him with a 29.5. So quite a lap out of Bryson Hicksbaugh there. Row 2 is going to be Cameron Stone and Jason S. Taylor. Jason with an impressive effort. Jason's one of those guys that tends to be a better racer than he is a qualifier. You don't really see him as a hot lapper, more of a long run type guy, but man, what a lap that was. Behind them, you've got James Mullins and Josh Ward, Brandon Pierce, Jonathan Delaney. Behind them, Dustin Hall and Preston McRae are going to round out your top 10.
Yeah, that will work. On the other side, you have quite a field in the top, between 10 and 20 as well. Row 6, Charlie Eaton and Sean O'Brien Jr. 7, Kevin Steele and Jared Phillips. That is Kyle Ammon. Am I seeing that right? I believe so.
Yep, I believe so.
Okay, and then Tyler Pinsonnet. Does that sound right too? I believe
yep.
So?
Yep, you got it.
Excellent. All right, and then with 17 through 20, it is Chad Sander, Mike Teller, Dalton Mobley, and then Ryan Samuelson. Round out your 11 through 20.
And to round out the entire field from the 21st on back, you've got Randy Drumhiller, Joshua Personette, Alex Brinson, Damaris Hickenbottom, Cody Strom, and Robert Mueller. Those last two drivers, Cody and Robert, did not post a qualifying time according to our document, so they're going to be starting tail end of the field if they grid tonight. And if everybody shows up, we've got 26 cars taking the green flag tonight, and I'm really looking forward to the start of this race. Texas is kind of a track that's known for some chaos early on. It seems like this track has a history of first lap incidents in real life and in the league. Back in preseason, we had a test race here prior to the season, and there was a little bit of controversy in the first few laps of that led to some tempers flaring before the season even began. So hopefully these drivers can keep their cool here in the Texas heat. We're going to have to wait and see, but the pace car is about to make that hard left turn. There it goes, Bryson Hicksbaugh in that 63 machine. When is he going to lead this field? Right there. Gets on the loud pedal out to a 2-car length gap. Something Bryson's kind of known for is those great starts and restarts, but Adam Benefield, on the other hand, didn't get so lucky. Spun his tires a little bit, held up the number 37 of Jason Taylor, and that allowed Cameron Stone to slip by both of them.
Yeah, good, nice work off the start here, and as you mentioned, drama on the first couple laps. Typically not a stranger, Texas not a stranger to that, but seemingly everybody's playing nice for the most part. A couple of passes early, but nothing really to shake a stick about. No big-time mistakes, as these cars seem to be in tune, and they're going pretty good going as we get a couple laps into this race.
And just a quick reminder to the viewers at home, on the left-hand side of your screen where you see the current running order, the names in red, those are your playoff drivers. There are 8 of them right now, but they are competing for the top 4 spots moving into the championship race in a few weeks there at Phoenix. And, of course, again, 4 drivers. So these guys are going to have to battle it out, claim those top spots. And also, if you're a playoff driver, should you get a win tonight, you will lock yourself into Phoenix. And I think that's kind of going to be the talking point for pretty much the majority of the next 3 races is going to be these drivers trying to lock themselves in, because we do have some interesting tracks coming up, including Martinsville, which you never really know what's going to happen at Martinsville. These guys can lock themselves in now and not have to worry about a short track where you're going to be in traffic the whole time. There's probably going to be a lot of incidents. Maybe a little bit of a load off their mind.
Yeah, Martinsville a bit of an enigma in itself. So if you can solidify yourself at a place like Texas and get yourself into a good spot, you can really not have to worry nearly as much about what happens at Martinsville. Your top movers and shakers at the moment: Jonathan Delaney is moved up to the 6th spot from the 8th spot where Brandon Pierce currently sits. Sean O'Brien Jr. has moved up from 12 to 10, and Kyle Ammon has moved in to 12th from 14th. That is the crux of it right now. 2 spots is your top move so far from qualifying, but Bryson Hicksbaugh still leads Cameron Stone in second, with Adam Benefel sitting in the number 3 spot.
You mentioned Sean O'Brien there, Chris, and I think Sean's got to be driving with a little bit of a pep in his step, because he is now the team owner for Black Flag Motorsports. Jason Taylor, the former owner and teammate of Sean O'Brien, just stepped down. It was announced earlier today that he'll be leaving the team and handing the keys to the shop over to Sean O'Brien. And I think Black Flag Motorsports is in good hands. Sean O'Brien is a driver that has been on the hunt all year long. I think at the start of the season, nobody really knew what to expect out of him. He was new to the league. But as this year has gone on, he's just gotten better and better and better, and his results have definitely shown it. And he's a guy who can set up a car, and in an open setup league like this, that is an almost invaluable talent that you definitely have to have. So it'll be interesting to see what he does and how the team can grow under his leadership. Right now, he's running P11, just outside the top 10. Dustin Hall, I believe, just made the overtake on him. Dustin Hall, another driver who is out of the playoffs, but still trying to get out here and maybe put up some good stats for bragging rights, at least. But Bryson Hicksbaugh still out front. Cameron Stone second. And I just want to talk a little bit about Cameron Stone. I know if he doesn't do well tonight, that is one driver who will be thoroughly disappointed. I talked to Cameron in the days coming up to the race, and he has been practicing this track, I think, more than I've seen him practice all year long. I don't know what it was about Texas. Maybe he wasn't feeling super confident, felt like he needed to practice, but he has turned hundreds of laps here, tried dozens of setups, and here he is tonight running second, not far behind the leader.
And actually, as you say that, he does take over the lead. I was watching that gap get smaller and smaller. He does take the top spot over Bryson Hicksbaugh. Now he's moved up 2 spots. Bryson in second with Adam Benefel sitting in the 3. And taking a look at James Mullins in the 5 spot. He's been eyeing Jason Taylor's spot on a few occasions, trying inside then back outside. Jason needs to play some defense here if he wants to keep his top 4 spot. But watch James Mullins. They're only about 0.05 of a second apart right now as they get into this particular stretch.
Yeah, James is hungry. Coming down that backstretch as you were talking about him, he actually put the bumper to Jason Taylor in that 37. Just gave him a little bit of a nudge, let him know that he was there. And it was because of that he was able to get underneath him and make that pass through 3 and 4. But coming into turn 1, that victory might be short-lived, because here comes Jonathan Delaney in that number 9. They mentioned he was one of the biggest movers so far, and here he is right there with the leaders. And man, Jonathan Delaney, he has been the force to be reckoned with, I think, all year long. I could be wrong, but I believe he's up to 9 wins in the season, or at least somewhere near there. And he nearly had another win last week at the Roval. He was disqualified a little over halfway due to the incident limit. Of course, this league does have a 21-point incident limit. If you cause enough incidents to get there, then you are immediately black flagged, taken out of the session. And unfortunately for Jonathan Delaney, he hit that limit, and what seemed to be a surefire win was kind of pulled out from underneath him. So we'll have to see if he can get a little bit of redemption here at Texas. I know these 1.5 miles have been very strong for the driver of the number 9. And man, he is closing in.
It'd be a lot of fun coming. These guys, more or less single file. Nobody really wanted to take any undue risks at this point. Still early on in this 4 laps at Texas Motor Speedway on the horizon. We're only through about 13 of them at this point in that race. But it is Adam Benefel who's actually moved up into the top spot past Cameron Stone. So trading spots, Bryson Hicksbaugh moves into the 3 hole. And there's only about 1/4 of a second separating the 1, 2, and 3 cars at the moment. So keep that in mind. Now more like 2/10 now as things have gotten a little bit tighter.
Yeah, things are definitely tightening up, and I gotta say, it does not surprise me to see Adam Benefiel up there. I mean, this is a driver who, you want to know how good Adam Benefiel is? Well, he pretty much sat out the entire first round of the playoffs because he knew he could. He had enough of a points cushion once it started that he didn't have to race. So he was out doing real-life endeavors. I believe he was doing a little bit of real-life racing as well as some family obligations. A little time away from the sim. The second round of the playoffs started, the round of 12, and he started showing back up, and there was no rust on that 83 machine. Once he came back in top form, doing really well. And tonight looks like he is trying to get his first win in a while. I believe he does not have a playoff win this year, so it would be his first win since the regular season if he could pull it home tonight. But he, again, is going to have a lot of competition. I mean, he's got Cameron Stone, Bryson Hicksbaugh, two heavy hitters in the league right behind him. You mentioned a lot of single file, Chris, and that's a good point. That's what we're seeing a lot of right now. Jonathan Delaney has moved to the high line to try to make a pass on Mullins. He doesn't. He actually pulls it off. So I gotta wonder if, as this race goes on, Chris, maybe the high line starts to become more viable as they lay rubber down up there.
Yeah, especially on the straightaways for sure. You start to see them. It just depends on if that inside car lets them get down towards the inside of the corners. That's going to be the big question as far as this oval in particular goes. Robert Mueller, your big mover and shaker, moves up from 23rd to 15th is where he's sitting right now. He is about 7 seconds behind our leader, Adam Benefiel, as it sits right at the moment as we close in on lap 16 out of the 334 we need. But watch Robert Mueller, who's continuing to make some moves. Aside from that, Ryan Samuelson has moved up from 18th to 13th. He's your second best, along with Jonathan Delaney now, who has moved into the third spot past Hicksbaugh. Hicksbaugh losing positions, but I feel like in the position he's in, he's okay being patient and getting back towards the front when he sees fit later in this race.
I would have to agree there. And, Ryan Samuelson, you mentioned him. That's another driver who is involved in the Black Flag Motorsports press release. He'll be moving to Black Flag next year, and he'll be part of their 4-car lineup. I believe Black Flag is the second team so far to have announced and unveiled their full roster. Of course, technically, Silver Bullet Racing would have been the second team to unveil their full roster, but they ended up releasing one of those drivers before the season ever began, so we're not going to count that. We'll put Black Flag Motorsports up on that pedestal. And Samuelson, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, one of the most improved drivers in the league. From last season to this season, you would think that it's a completely different driver, like he's just hired somebody to climb into his sim rig under his name, but no, he has just gotten so good so quickly, and it's been a blast to watch. I'm always you can't really be too biased as a commentator, but I'm always pulling that number 16 and hoping to see him have good runs, and it looks like tonight he is definitely trying to have a good night. So it's definitely going to be fun to watch. Just a reminder for the spectators at home, the stage lengths are going to be at stage 1 is going to end at lap 105. Stage 2 is going to end at lap 210. So pretty long stages tonight. I believe there's going to be, if it stays green, there should be green flag stops in each stage. There's no way they can make that 100-lap distance. So a little bit more strategy tonight than last week at the Roval, where it was kind of more just staying green and hitting at the end of the stage.
Yeah, and you're going to have, at the speeds that these guys are going, tire wear is definitely going to be a thing you have to keep an eye on. You don't really want to run those tires all the way to the point where the end of the stage happens. And you're going to see some pits during the stage breaks, as it were, but it's not going to be nearly as prevalent when you have green flag stops that are going to happen in multiple areas of this race. Adam Benefiel still holding on to the 1 spot. Jonathan Delaney's moved up into the 2, but I'm keeping an eye on Bryson Hicksbaugh. He's given up multiple positions over the last 5 laps or so. He's given them up to James Mullins and Jason Taylor just in the last 3 laps alone. So keep an eye on him. Not sure what could be up with that 63 over there, but he's not having a great go as it seems right now, as Brandon Pierce is chasing him down the 38, and he's only a second or so behind.
Yeah, he's definitely under fire. Brandon Pierce has been closing that gap, and you said it, Chris. I gotta wonder if there's not something off with that 63. Maybe he just missed the setup a little bit. Of course, he is going to have ample opportunities to make some changes to that car when he comes down pit road, be it tire pressure changes, track bar changes, to see what he can maybe do. But it is surprising to see him drop this quickly. Usually you kind of see Bryson excel in these long runs. You know, he doesn't typically have a short run car, so very surprising to see, and we'll keep an eye on him. A little bit further up front, nothing really changing in terms of that running order, except for Jonathan Delaney, who has ran his way all the way up to second place, and he is closing in on the leader. So I think when it comes to that number 9, the last thing this field wants to do is let him get out front and lead this thing, because clean air is going to be really important at this track. I've heard from the drivers time and time again that once you get behind somebody, your car is just plowing tight. No matter how loose you set that car up to be, you get behind somebody and you can't turn. Well, Jonathan Delaney, he's fast in traffic. So how fast could he possibly be when he's got that clean air and nothing making his car tight?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. It's going to be a clean air in front of him, and if he's got the clean air to work with, and he'll have the draft work with the top 4 that are up there with him. You've got Jason Taylor, who's currently chasing down Cameron Stone. Those two are very, very close right at the moment as well. So keep an eye on the 3 and 4 in position at the moment. Looks like actually James Taylor trying to work the inside of Cameron Stone. Cameron playing pretty good defense as it sits right now, but Adam Benefeld looks real comfortable at the top of this grid right now. He is creating a little bit of separation, about 0.2 of a second over John Delaney, but Delaney can close that, but at the moment Benefeld seems to be pretty comfortable in that spot.
Yeah, that's how I would describe Adam Benefield most of the time. Is pretty comfortable. He's just one of those guys who's so good that you never really see him on the ragged edge, or he doesn't make it look like he's on the ragged edge, even if he is. He's got so much car control and so much ability. He's kind of like Kevin Harvick. You know, whenever they go to the interior camera for Kevin Harvick, he's always driving with one hand, not cranking on the wheel, real calm, collected. Exactly how Adam Benefield is, but. He does have a bit of a battle brewing. Delaney has been closing in, and now he's kind of stalled out at about that 2/10 mark, like you said. Again, could be a result of dirty air, but I think this track is something that is going to kind of play right into Delaney's wheelhouse. Something about Jonathan that I've noticed over the last season is he is just really good at preserving his equipment and taking care of his tires, probably better than anybody else in the league in terms of long-run speed. And the thing about Texas is it's a track that's really tempting to oversteer your car, to crank on that steering wheel, stuff away your tires. You get into turn 1, and it's a lot tighter than turns 3 and 4. And sometimes you get into that corner a little bit too quick, car doesn't want to turn, so you crank on that wheel, and of course that's just eating away at your tires. Jonathan never really does that. He just somehow saves those tires the entire run, and he's fast while he does it. So the longer this run goes on, the better he's probably going to get.
Things working really, really well for Adam Benefield. He's up 15 positions. He started in 16th off of qualifying. You have Josh Ward as well in the 15 places up. He was in 23rd at the start of this race, so he's in a good spot getting into the top 10. But there is a pretty big gap between 4th and 5th position, about 2 full seconds, maybe 2 1/10 seconds between Cameron Stone in the 4th spot and James Mullins in the 5th spot. So plenty of separation there. Top 4 drafting off each other, and 5 through 8 going to have to do something to get themselves back into position to be able to get back to the front of this pack.
Yeah, really, we've got the top 4 under a blanket, and you mentioned the breakaway that they have, and they really are kind of in a class of their own right now. And when you have this situation where the top 4 are so close, but they can't quite pass each other, they're just kind of struggling to stay in line. Strategy calls can shake up the running order. That could be the most important thing for them in terms of these green flag stops, who gets the undercut, who gets the overcut. So I got to ask you, with the fuel mileage they have, I'd imagine they could run at the maximum somewhere around 63, 64 laps, but that would be over halfway through the stage. They could theoretically pit a little bit sooner, closer to lap 50. Let's say you're a driver in one of these cars, Chris. What do?
You could, if you're one of the top 4, you could afford to pit a little bit earlier, because worst case scenario, you're going to have everybody behind you pitting after you. And as long as you put yourself with enough fuel to get through the stage at the very least, then you could be in really good shape to take back over your top spots when the racers behind you decide that it's time for them to head into pit row. So going maybe lap 45 might not be a bad plan for any of these top 4 right at the moment, from Benefield to Stone. And then you have everybody behind you that's going to start seeing, oh, well, they're pitting now. What's my fuel at? And then the top four taking the initiative, I think, could play to their benefit.
Absolutely, and I like that you brought up the rest of the field seeing the leaders pit possibly early and kind of making their decisions based on that. There's a lot of mind games when it comes to pit strategy, and sometimes these guys have everything planned out before they even climb in the car, but that's all kind of thrown out the window if the rest of the field takes on a strategy that maybe you weren't planning on. Then you kind of have to adapt that situation as a driver and try to counter it and kind of make your strategy up on the fly. I know some of these drivers have to do that all the time, so it'll be definitely a bit of a game of chess. Maybe not so much a game of just pushing the car and trying to drive as hard as possible, but outsmarting your competition as well.
Yeah, a whole lot. There's about there's about a full turn between 4 and 5, as we see it right at the moment. Good stuff so far from Benefil. He's still running very, very well. 29-29 is his best lap so far, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is your tops on the grid so far. So he's got top position and best lap to go with. He's running about a 31 on his last lap, so keep that in mind. Looks like everyone else in his top four are running about the same. So with Cameron Stone a little bit ahead of everybody else in that top four group. But good stuff so far from Benefil. He indeed leads. He is one of those in the playoff chases. You see those highlighted in red on the left if you're watching at home. And if you're just joining us, Texas Motor Speedway, 3-wide TV presenting the 100% Cup Series. And it's been fun so far. Only about 10% of the way through this entire race, as we have a couple of stages to go through. 105, your first stage break.
Yeah, a lot of racing left and a lot of time for these guys to figure out the track, adjust their lines if they need to, work on their cars should they decide that they have to. But this lead pack is really tightening up quite a bit. Jason Taylor has been on the move. After he got around Cameron Stone, he's just been chipping away at Jonathan Delaney. But the crazy thing is, Cameron Stone, he's kind of come to life too. He's sticking right on the bumper, the 37. And whereas we had about a second and a half from first to fourth before, now we've only got 8/10 separating the top four. So I think maybe tire wear is becoming the great equalizer, making everybody a little bit closer in pace, which is, of course, going to place more emphasis on when these guys decide to pit and the strategy that they so choose. But on track, it's producing some really exciting racing. They're single file right now, but man, these guys, you got to think, being this close together, this far into a green flag run, 37 laps, it just shows you how close this competition is, and you got to think these drivers are just pushing these cars for all they're worth, because they're trying to get just that little bit of extra track position, and everybody wants that clean air, especially here at Texas. So definitely a lot of fun racing and clean racing too. We mentioned Texas is kind of known for issues early on in real life. The very first race here had a wreck on the very first lap. They came back next year and had the exact same scenario play out this way in 1998. But this week, everything has been really clear and green. Everybody's been very courteous, which you don't always see in a playoff scenario. But
yeah, sure.
Maybe these guys are a little bit more calm because it's the first race. They feel like if something goes wrong or if they don't win tonight, they got a couple races to lay back on. But I don't know. Is that kind of the mindset you'd want to carry, or should they be pushing it right here, right now, and trying to lock themselves in early?
So I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. First race of the playoffs, you're not gonna want to take any unnecessary risks and maybe put yourself in a bad spot going into next week. At the same time, you're gonna be keeping an eye on everyone around you and seeing if their strategies change between regular season and playoffs going into this first playoff race. So there's a little bit of a read and react, see what the field is doing around you before you start to make your move and show your cards. And I think that's the way I would play it in that particular case. But these guys, they're way skilled. They're more skilled than I am, and they're definitely skilled enough to adjust on the fly to what's going on around them, which is something to keep an eye on.
I'd have to agree. It's a bit of a mind game. A lot of strategy and calculations and watching the competition and learning. That's what makes up a lot of what makes motorsports great. It's not just racing and pushing the car as hard as possible, but the thinking aspect to it too, because there is a whole lot of that for these guys. I want to issue a minor correction. Earlier in the broadcast, I said this league has a 21 X incident limit, and that is true for the road courses. I should have specified that that is only on the road courses. Here at the oval circuits, the incident limit is much lower. It's 13X, so nearly
Okay.
cut in half. And the tire limit is also slightly stricter here on the oval. They've got 9 sets of tires in the pits. So right now, with the way that this has gone green the whole time, that kind of opens up these guys' possibilities later on, because you get a lot of cautions early on, and you got to think, well, when do I use my tires? Do I use them now? Do I risk using them? Because maybe the race gets crazy later on. We have a late race caution, and I want to make sure I've got a set of tires left. But if it stays green, these guys will have plenty of tires by the end of this. They won't really have to worry about that.
No, you're exactly right. The biggest thing, keep an eye on tires, and keeping with that theme, you notice as these tires get more wear on them, these lap times are getting slower and slower. You're running basically 31s across the board in the top 10 right at the moment, and you have yourself a sizable gap as well at the time being. It looks like about a 5-second gap now between 4 and 5. That top 4 still separating themselves very well away from the rest of the pack, but everybody running pretty close to a 31, or at least a little bit behind that, with their best coming at the beginning of the race, 29:25, 29:24. Jason Taylor owns that the best lap at the moment, so that's something to keep an eye on. These tires, that almost gives you a promotion to, hey, get in the pits a little bit sooner, get your tires better, and you can start running a little bit better on the lap count. About a 2-second difference between your best and what you're running right now because of tire wear.
Absolutely. I also want to just clarify for the fans at home, if you look on the left-hand side of your screen, I mentioned the playoff drivers' names were highlighted in red. You might notice there's only 7 red names. It should be the round of 8. I've noticed for some reason Damaris Hickenbottom, his name is not highlighted in red on the graphic, but he is a playoff driver. He advanced after last week's race at the Roval, just barely over his teammate Kevin Steele. By, I believe, 1 single point is what he had on him to progress. So Damaris is in the playoffs. That 09 car is in contention for the points. His name just isn't highlighted on the graphic. So if you look on the cars themselves, there are the red playoff banners and the red playoff spoilers. Those also indicate who is in the playoffs. And of course, Damaris is still decked out in those red spoiler, splitter, and the banner trio there. So he is definitely not having the night that he was hoping to have. He definitely had a lot of confidence kind of instilled last week, moving on to the round of 8. He's had a really good playoff run this year, very consistent. But this race, it seems like that car just isn't really where he wants it to be. So we'll have to see what he can do. But you might notice that 63 dropping through the running order. Well, that's because he is going to be the first of our leaders to really kick off this pit stop sequence. If I could speak properly, I apologize. But you said it, Chris. You said somewhere between lap 45 and 50. Well, there he goes, right in the middle. He's coming down on lap 47. He can make it to the end, and he's going to have the advantage of fresh tires for at least a couple laps.
Yeah, exactly. And you see, if you have the line time sheet in front of you, you got a whole bunch of red names. First pit is in the books, as that's going to set a snowball effect in motion. I do believe as with Hicksbaugh going in there, I think that's going to create a snowball of everybody behind him. And Benefel's still out there. Delaney as well. I think they're going to try to get a couple more lead laps in before they go in. But you'll start to see it now that, and actually Josh Ward has gone in as well, the 67 car. So that's to start the domino effect. We'll start to see everybody start to go and get in, get some fresh tires, and get ready to go for the last 50 or so of this stage. And that should be a pretty good statement as to where this what this track is doing to the tires on these cars. And because, I mean, Hicksbaugh in the 5 spot, it also gives him an opportunity to not only tune his car a little bit, but at the same time, he didn't really, I'm sure, want to give up that 5th spot in the running order if he can help it, especially when he was having a problem getting up to the leaders as it was.
Yeah, definitely. It's always hard as a driver to give up that track position and be the first one down pit road. You kind of hope that nobody follows you down and that, they stay out on track on those older tires so that they're turning slower lap times and you can slowly make that time up on your fresh tires before they decide to come down pit. It looks like as you said, he kind of started the snowball effect. A lot of drivers making their way down pit road.
Yep.
Cameron Stone, Brandon Pierce, they're falling through the order. They're getting their car serviced. And this is one of those tracks where I feel like getting tires isn't just so much a strategy call, but it's also risk minimization, because this is a track where old tires can genuinely be a bit of a danger. Turns 1 and 2 are so tight that by the time your tires are fully worn and they start to really go away on you, that outside wall creeps closer and closer every time you exit. And it's all too easy to get on that throttle just a little bit too soon and hit that outside wall. And you know as well as I do, Chris, it is not forgiving. That inside wall, if you bounce off the outside, it's not far away.
Yeah, no, not especially when you're going at the speeds these guys are going at. That's a very good point. But you see a whole lot. And Cameron Stone, who is up in the top 4 group as well, he has moved and taken the pit. So we'll see how long it takes for him to get up into the area. But he had a decent pit, about 15 seconds or so. But him getting 4 fresh ones could definitely be an advantage to him, as he got in before the rest of the lead group. So that's something to keep an eye on as far as, and actually as we say that, looks like everyone else in the top 4 is heading in. Jonathan Delaney is in the pit box. He's going to work on getting 4 fresh. Benefeld, Taylor, and Miller doesn't look like are too far behind all told, as just about everybody, I think, minus 1 or 2 are going to be in the pits before too long.
Yeah, and John is joined in the pits with Preston McRae, Tyler Pimpsino, a lot of drivers making their way down. Of course, this is just about splitting the stage in half, so that is usually when pit road gets a little bit busier, except for the guys who take the undercut. And looks like for Bryson Hicksbaugh, that undercut it worked a little bit. I mean, he did gain time on Cameron Stone and the cars that were ahead of him, but he still cycled out behind him, and I think that's exactly what he was trying to avoid. He wanted to get out in front of him, get that clean air, and see if he could play some defense, because once he fell behind the first time, he just kept dropping. Now, unfortunately, not cycling out where he wanted to be, even if he's a little bit closer. Seems like that 63 team's got a little bit more figuring out to do before the end of this race. That car isn't with him. I'm watching him drive. It seems like it's fighting him through the corner. The front end's kind of washing out. It's really weird to see. Very out of form for that number 63.
Yeah, not exactly what you expect to see from Hicksbaugh, who had the pole coming into this race, so something to keep an eye on. He's somebody that was doing pretty well previous this week, but not so much on this day. Adam Benefeld has gone into the pit. He was on lap 54, and Robert Miller went in as well. Kevin Steele, and then Cameron Stone working his way up back to the top 3. Jason Taylor leads right now. We'll see how long that's going to be, as he has not pit. Neither has Sean O'Brien Jr., as he is in the 2nd position as these guys get going, but about an 8-second gap between Taylor and O'Brien Jr. from 1 to 2, as these guys try to get some separation between them and the rest of the pack before Taylor has to inevitably pit himself.
I gotta wonder if something didn't go wrong with Adam Benefeld's pit stop, because he cycled out not only behind Delaney but also behind Hicksbaugh. It could have just been that he stayed out too long. Delaney did get that couple lap advantage with the undercut, but to drop nearly 4 positions is pretty excessive. So I gotta wonder if maybe he didn't overshoot his pit stall or something happened there. But he's got a little bit of ground to make up now, but he does have the advantage of having some of the freshest tires out of the group that he's in. I mean, Cameron Stone, Jonathan Delaney, again, they pitted a good few laps before him, so he should have a faster car for a little while, be able to make up that gap. And Adam's another one of those drivers that right now in stage 1, what you're seeing out of him is not at all remotely related to what you're going to see out of him at the end of this race. He never shows his cards too early. I'll never forget interviewing him. I brought it up. I was like, Adam, it seems like at the start of the race, your lap times are always so much slower than at the end. It's like you just turn on a light switch once stage 2 ends. And he told me straight up, he said, yeah, I just ride for the first 2 stages. I'm sitting there at 3/4 throttle. And I'm like, wow, that's some confidence out of that 83.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. Benefeld showing that confidence. You say he's running 3/4 throttle right now. He's still moving up positions, which means his positioning on the track is absolutely sublime. He's just jumped in front of Hicksbaugh in the 5 spot. Jason Taylor still up, has not hit just yet. Jonathan Delaney and Cameron Stone have moved their way into the 2-3. Benefeld sitting in 4. in front of Hicksbaugh. Benefil has worked his way back up into the top 5, but Jason Taylor, your top mover and shaker at the moment, as he just now has taken his first pit stop of the day, so he'll be plenty good on tires for the rest of this particular stage, which actually could benefit him. He will have some of the fresher tires towards the end of this first stage, as even with 50 laps to go in this stage, you're going to have some wear and tear on the tires of those that are just behind him at the moment.
Oh yeah, some of these guys that pitted on lap, let's say 47, Bryson Hicksbaugh, he was the first one to come down on 47. He's already starting to feel some tire wear. Here on lap 61, that lap time is already starting to deteriorate. So he is going to have some fresher tires in that 37 machine, and as will O'Brien. He came in 1 lap before Taylor. And 50 laps, that's a lot of time left in this stage to try to make that up and close that gap. So we'll keep an eye on him, see what he can do. You got to think Black Flag Motorsports, those teammates, they stayed out as long as they could. They were probably waiting for a caution. Usually when you see somebody take that exaggerated long-run strategy, that's what they're doing. They're holding out for a yellow flag so that everybody who's pitted, who's a lap down, they got to take the wave around. They got to start at the tail end of the lead lap. You can keep your track position, come down pit road, get some tires, and everything works out hunky-dory. Unfortunately, this race has been green all the way, or at least unfortunately for them. So that caution never came. Their hand was kind of forced. They couldn't have gone much further. I'd imagine they only had a lap or two left in the tank at that point. So, but again, it kind of maybe unintentionally worked out for them anyway. Like you said, those fresher tires are a force to be reckoned with. He's closing the gap to Kevin Steele absolutely immensely right now. Possibly one of the fastest cars on the track.
Yeah, I completely agree. Jason Taylor had a very good pit stop, just under 15 seconds to change all 4. And then now he's up in the top 8. So that gives some benefit to creating as much a gap as possible as you can from everybody else pitting behind you, and then pitting yourself, because it puts you in a position where you don't lose a ton of spots. And now you're going to work your way back up the pack to everybody else. Sean O'Brien Jr. just behind him. Sean O'Brien Jr. was actually just behind Jason Taylor before both of them pit near the same time. Cameron Stone and Jonathan Delaney going back and forth for that number 1 spot at the moment. They're about a second and a quarter away from each other as the time being on lap number 64 now, as we get into the last half of this first stage. Benefil has moved up to 3, Hicksbaugh 4, Brandon Pierce has moved up into the 5 spot ahead of Robert Mueller, and then Kevin Steele, who we talked about, just gave up the spot to Jason Taylor, as Taylor closed that gap in a real big hurry. And taking a look, Damaris Hickenbottom's worked his way into the 13 spot, so he's at least getting some positions, but he's got a long way to go, about 6 seconds between him and the next car in front of him.
Yeah, he does have a little ways to go. Another advantage that Jason Taylor has beyond just having fresh tires and having the fast car is that he's pretty much free to use that fast car. These guys up front, Jonathan Delaney, Cameron Stone, they have to save their tires to get to the end of the stage with at least a halfway decent car. They can't push it all the way. But with the Black Flag Motorsports cars, Jason Taylor, Sean O'Brien, they pitted so late that really they can push the car from the time they come out of the pits all the way to the end of the stage and not really worry about conserving, which makes overtaking a little bit easier, because some of these guys, they're going to roll over. They're going to let you by because they're going to say, well, I can't battle you right now, or I don't want to battle you because I don't want to put the wear and tear on my car. But again, not something they got to worry about. So he's really moving up through the field, up into P7, like you said, only about a second behind Brandon Pierce now. Another big mover, Robert Mueller, he's finally moved his way up into the top 5. He started towards the back of the field. Mueller, of course, the driver who won the Roval last week after the disqualification of the leader, Jonathan Delaney. Robert, he's a fast driver everywhere. He's good at short tracks, good at intermediates, good at road courses. Not in it for the points. His real-life schedule was a little too busy to meet the race requirement that is kind of set by the league. You got to run a certain number of races to be eligible for the playoffs, and didn't quite hit that number, but still, even though he's not in it for the points, he is a threat week in and week out. It seems like tonight he's got a pretty good car.
That's a dangerous driver there. He's sitting there with nothing to lose and a good car to boot. So watch for him to maybe move and shake his way up the grid and maybe put some straw and start stirring up the pot as far as these playoff racers are concerned. Delaney still owns the 1 spot, about a second, maybe almost 2-second gap between him and Cameron Stone, who has the 3 spot. Adam Benefil has worked his way up to the 3. Bryson Hicksbaugh moved into the 4th spot, but he's quite a bit behind your top 3 right at the moment. He's about there's about a 7-second difference there, so keep that in mind going into the next part of this race. We are getting closer to lap number 70, just going to be about 35 laps to go past that, the end of the first stage, as these guys get closer and closer and get warmed up on this track. And I'd venture to say maybe Hicksbaugh, you may be looking at a second pit from him before this particular stage is done.
That is a possibility. Of course, the advantage to that would be that he wouldn't have to pit under the stage caution. He would have to stay on the lead lap for that to really matter much, because if he went a lap down, he'd have to take a wave around or the lucky dog, whichever he received, and that wouldn't really help. But it is a possibility. If he could stay on the lead lap, just take the service that he needs. But we'll have to wait and see, especially... another thing that I didn't really think about, Chris, is maybe he's close on fuel. 47, that's cutting it pretty close. It's really early into the stage, earlier than anybody else. Yeah. And, he might have to conserve some fuel in that thing. You got to think about the handling aspect, too. His fuel tank is going to be a whole lot lighter than some of these other guys at the end of the stage, which can affect handling. And I think here at Texas, these guys want their cars to be handling absolutely perfectly. And even something as subtle as the weight in the rear end from your fuel cell does affect the handling, and these guys would definitely notice it. But there goes Jason Taylor around the bottom, making it look effortless. That tells me Hicksbaugh may be saving a little bit, because he didn't even try to defend that.
Yeah, no, and Taylor has had a good car all day long, so we'll see how long that keeps up. He's the one with the latest pit in this first stage. He's up 10 positions from his 14th starting position. And Benethill's moved up into the 3 spot as well, so he takes over Cameron Stone's 2 spot. So keep that in mind. And now there's almost a full second, maybe 9/10 of a second between him and Cameron Stone. So Benethill's got a real good-looking car right at the moment. He's going to be creeping up on to Delaney here in a very short amount of time if he continues at this pace. So very good stuff from Benethill, who's led a majority of laps in this race, but Delaney holding him off for the moment, and Delaney's been very good this season as well.
Yeah, definitely class of the field so far. I believe Delaney was able to get the regular season championship, so he really came into the playoffs with a huge points buffer, and of course the bonus that the regular season championship awarded just added to that. So it's been a very largely successful season for Delaney, and the thing about Delaney is I'm sure he wants to go out on top. I mean, everybody does. Everybody wants that championship, but right now, at number 9, his plans for next season are looking a little uncertain. He was originally signed, as I mentioned a little bit ago, with SBR, Silver Bullet Racing. He was supposed to be a part of that 4-driver lineup alongside RJ Root, Cameron Stone, and one other driver who's managing to slip my mind. Mason Lowry. So it was going to be those 4 drivers, and then there were some disputes off track and on track. It was a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. One thing led to another, and Cameron Stone said, I have rescinded your contract. And after that, Jonathan Delaney actually found greener pastures. He joined the pro team for Anthony Alfredo, so a legitimate Coke Series pro team took him on, and that was a huge opportunity for the driver of the number 9. John was very ecstatic about that deal. He's still very ecstatic about it, as he should be. And once that happened, he wasn't really too sure about his future in league races. Maybe going part-time, maybe not running in the leagues at all, but rather pursuing a chance at the road to pro to get up into the Coke Series, which he's talented enough to do it. I've said it before, say it again. Jonathan Delaney, you can say what you want about him. Maybe he's had his moments on the track that some people may disagree with, but at the end of the day, no matter how controversial he may be, he is one of the best talents right now behind the wheel, not just in this league, but maybe in iRacing as a whole. He has just improved so much, and it's genuinely scary what he can do. And you just look at the field, the drivers behind him that he's beating. Adam Benefield, that's a guy who was in the Coke Series, a professional iRacing driver. Delaney's got a 2-second gap on him. He's been consistently besting him all season long. So if he's not going to come back to league racing, if his future in leagues is uncertain, he definitely wants to go out the championship. And I think that might be what's driving that incredible performance that he's had so far.
You got to find the motivation in some odd places. As one door closes, another one opens. I guess for Delaney is, the chance to go road to pro. That's a chance you have to take if you have the ability to do so, and it does seem like he has that ability. Robert Miller's taking over the 5 spot from Bryson Hicksbaugh, as both of them are fighting neck and neck at the moment. They're about 0.4 of a lap away from each other as it sits right now. So watch for them to start working against each other. Jason Taylor has dropped back to Cameron Stone a little bit. Cameron Stone still in that 3 spot, and that's where the separation is at the time being. Ryan Samuelson in your 12th spot is the last racer on the lead lap as it sits right now, as Kyle Ammon, Damaris Hickenbottom is a lap behind as well. So that basically puts your top 12 racers into that lead lap position, and 7 of those 12 are in the playoffs. So keep that in mind as things are going to get tighter before they get more loose as the end of this first stage comes creeping along.
And I want to point out Damaris in 14th. Prior to that pit sequence, he was in 19th and had a bit of a gap to 18th. It didn't look like he was going to quite get to him, but ever since that pit stop and the strategy that he pulled, he gained a few positions. He's up to 14th. Not quite in the lucky dog position, as you mentioned. That would go to Ryan Samuelson as they run, although Preston McRae is looking like he may go a lap down before the end of this, which would take it from Samuelson. But yeah, Hickenbottom's slowly improving. He's working his way up through the grid, and I would expect that out of him. He has that ability to sometimes just maybe not be the outright fastest car in the field, but he picks his battles. He knows when to make a move, and he knows how to stay in the show. He knows how to save his car, how to make sure that he doesn't get involved in any incidents. And at the end of the day, he's going to be there, and he's going to be there in pretty good positions. So I think as this night goes on, we're going to see that 09 gain a few more positions, as he's probably hoping to do. Of course, everybody wants to advance into the round of 4, but it would be huge for Damaris to move into the round of 4, as he would be one of the apex drivers to do so last season. I believe it was Kevin Steele and Cameron Stone who made it into the Final 4. Of course, at that time, Cameron Stone wasn't a part of Apex. But yeah, he's having a good night, and we'll see if he can improve it further as time goes on. But winding closer to the end of this stage, currently on lap 84, coming to 85, and Delaney's still holding on to the lead. That 2-second gap, Chris, has really stabilized. It's been 2.2 for a solid 8 or 9 laps now.
Yeah.
Gotta wonder if maybe Adam Benefiel is just holding back a little bit, and he's gonna start turning it up at the end of the stage, or if he's just happy where he is.
Hey, it could be either one, to be honest with you. And Benefiel, we know he has the skill to get up there and close that gap if he needs to, but he could be just going along for the ride at the moment, just using the draft that Delaney's given him and just coasting along, maybe saving a little bit of fuel by using that draft as well. So it'd be fun to see where this ends up as we get to the last 20 laps of this first stage. You got to keep an eye on Benefiel. You got to keep an eye on Cameron Stone as well, who he doesn't have a large gap between him and Benefiel as well. Jason Taylor, he's about 4 seconds behind your leader at the moment, but he's shown that he can make a move as things sit as well. Robert Miller and Bryson Hicksbaugh, they are moving back and forth with each other, closing the gap, widening the gap, closing the gap, widening the gap. Hicksbaugh yet to make a move on Miller for that top 5 position, but that's where he sits right now. Brandon Pierce, the only one other than Preston McRae in the top 11 that has a negative number as far as how many spots he's moved since qualifying. He's down 3 spots from the 4 position, and Preston McRae is down 9 spots from the 2 position where he originally qualified. Everyone else has had really positive moves, really good cars on race day, and that's a credit to those teams. Very good work, as you see Delaney still sitting about 2 seconds ahead, but Benefiel maybe starting to make a move. He's getting closer to that 2-second mark instead of the 2.2.
Yeah, he is closing in a little bit. This might be where the driver of that 83 flips the switch, turns on the afterburners. We'll have to follow along with him. It is worth mentioning that McRae has gone a lap down, and that did take the lucky dog from Samuelson, so they are kind of in competition for it. And to the viewers at home, the reason that matters, when you get the lucky dog, you can pit with the rest of the leaders, and you can still get your lap back, whereas if you got to take the wave around, you can't pit. The only way to get your lap back with that wave around is to stay out, you don't pit, and you get to rejoin the lead lap, but you've got old equipment, and you're starting at the tail end of the field. So not ideal. If you want to get your lap back, you want to do it via the lucky dog. Right now, Preston McRae is a driver who may do that, but Dustin Hall is falling back to the leader slowly, and with about 17 laps left in this stage, he's got time to, the leader has time. So the battle for the lucky dog, I think, is going to be a consistent thing tonight, and being on the lead lap is going to be important because so far this has stayed green. And in my opinion, Chris, this is kind of the calm before the storm, you know, and if things do kick off, if things start getting a little bit crazy towards the end, we start getting some yellow flags, you want to be on the lead lap so that when the field gets bunched up, every car you pass is for position.
Yeah, definitely an important part of this stage as things get down to the tail end of this first one. Bryson Hicksbaugh is the guy I'm watching right now. He is his pit lap was 46. He's coming up to the double that point as he is looking at lap 92 would be the equivalent of the spot that he went into the pits at earlier. Does he try to push it, or does he try to go in for a second pit stop in stage one? Interesting folds, interesting storylines as we get towards the end of this first stage. Good stuff coming from the top of the group. Still a 2-second gap between Benefiel and Jonathan Delaney as things are tightening up just a little bit. Cameron Stone's falling back a little bit from that group, but not too terribly much, as he's got some work to do as far as that goes. But lap 91 is where Delaney's at and Benefiel is at. They've got about 7/10 of a 7/100 of a lap between them. So just that's a lot, not a lot of distance all told, looking at where Delaney and Benefiel is. But Delaney's doing a real good job getting those corners exactly the way he needs to and keeping one of the more talented drivers anywhere behind him and seemingly into that 2 and 2.5 second curve.
Yeah, Delaney doing a phenomenal job so far. To Benefiel's advantage, though, Delaney will be getting into a little bit of lap traffic, one car at a time. A little bit ahead of him on the straightaway. There should be a couple cars, I believe. And that'll give him some dirty air. That might slow him down a little bit. Benefiel has closed in by about 2/10 over the last 10 or so laps. But if he wants to catch him, he's going to have to be a little quicker than that. That 2/10 over 10 laps, that is not the closing rate he needs because there's not a whole lot of time left in this stage. We're at about 12 to go in this stage, and Delaney's still doing what he needs to do to hit those marks. Painfully consistent so far today. I think for the rest of the field is when you're the car behind, when you're the following car, you always hope that, man, maybe he's going to miss the turn, maybe he makes a mistake, maybe I close in. But so far, everybody following Delaney has just been watching him hit his marks every single time. He's just not made an error.
It looks like Cameron Stone working through the lap traffic as well. Benefiel has not taken advantage yet of the lap traffic that Delaney has come into some contact with. But good stuff from Cameron Stone, trying to close the difference between him and everyone else in front of him. It's been a good race for Stone. He's been consistently in that top 5 basically all day, even through pit row. He was up there pretty regularly. Robert Mueller and Bryson Hicksbaugh still working behind Jason Taylor, as both of them fighting for a little bit of position. They're not too far from each other either as things get going. Kevin Steele's moved up into the top 9 as he gets 4 positions up from his qualifying spot at number 13. And Preston McRae continues to fall some positions and sits in the number 11 as of right now. And that's where your main ones we're going to be looking at for your main attractions so far in this race. Fun to see where everyone shakes out as we get to the final 15 laps or so.
Yeah, I think shake is a good word for it because the field really has changed around a lot from the beginning of this stage. The picture has kind of been shaken up a little bit. I mean, you had big players like Adam Benefiel and Robert Mueller starting so far towards the back of the field, you weren't really sure what they were going to be able to do in stage 1. You knew they had a bit of a tall order ahead of them to pass so many cars, and at the same time, you had other drivers like Preston McRae that qualified really well. And now it's kind of flip-flopped. You know, Benefiel worked his way up front. McRae's kind of fallen off a little bit. It's really changed around a lot from what I think a lot of us were expecting. We're still in the first stage, so it has been really interesting to see how these guys have worked this first stage and how things have changed. But Adam Benefiel has fallen back to a 2.2 second gap.
Yep.
And so that kind of tells me either he was pushing the car, trying to catch up when he closed the gap, or Delaney was taking it easy. But right now, gap remaining pretty much where it had been for a long time. Delaney's pretty comfortable in the lead. He can just kind of take it easy, hit his marks, and hopefully bring home a stage. But Jason Taylor in fourth. I want to talk about him for a second. The viewers at home may be wondering, why did he stall out? You know, he had the fresher tires. He was passing so many cars, doing really, really well. What happened? You know, why did he stop at fourth? Well, the tire wear does tend to equalize, especially here on iRacing. Once it reaches a certain point, let's say your tire gets to 50% wear, well, your lap times on 50% wear are going to be just about the same as they are on 20%. So after a while, it kind of plateaus, and even the guys who pitted really early are going to be running the same lap times as the guys who pitted a little bit later. So the advantage you get on those fresh tires has a shelf life before things plateau. And for Jason Taylor, it just happened to plateau around fourth. He got up to Cameron Stone, and as Chris mentioned, he dropped back a little bit. He got right up to the bumper and then fell back when those tires started to go away. But when this stage ends, you're pretty much going to see all of these leaders make their way down pit road. We'll get 4 fresh Goodyears, and it's going to be a different picture, I think. Stage 2 is going to be a lot different than Stage 1 because we've got some of these power players that now don't have to work their way through the field. They're going to be starting up front. Adam Benefield, Robert Mueller, Jason Taylor, he's up there in fourth. So with all of these guys, the heavy hitters starting right with one another up front, I think we're going to see some pretty great battling.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun going into this second stage, and especially into the third stage, your longest stage of the 334 total laps at Texas Motor Speedway. First and second stages are 105 apiece, and then that leaves the additional 124 for that third and final stage, which very well could be the difference as you start to look at fuel and tires for that last stage. Could be a lot of fun as you get towards the latter stage of this race. But the nice part about the second stage, you come in and you get everybody gridded back up, which is going to be fun to see. That you get to see a lot more passing attempts, and a lot more, maybe more aggressive driving, which could lead to some fun as well. The big thing about having everybody gridded back up, having everybody close, is you get to see what you can get away with and where everybody's mentality's at. Maybe see if everybody loosens up a little bit as they got to the first stage, more or less completely clean. We've had green flag racing the entirety of this race, and it doesn't look like it's going to quit anytime soon. These guys are very much in control of their machines.
Absolutely, I'd have to agree fully. One thing I'm noticing here as well, Benefield's starting to fall back even further, now about 3 seconds. So probably just taking it easy, getting to the end of the stage. He's got a huge buffer back to third, so he doesn't really need to push the car. He knew he probably wasn't going to get to the number 9, so he's just making sure to take it easy, not wreck the car, bring it home. Definitely a smart call there. But Jonathan Delaney is coming around to take lap 105. Once 10 cars, the top 10 cars have taken the lap 105, then the admins will throw their caution, and they're going to get these cars coming down pit road, getting them serviced. The Lucky Dog will be awarded, which, by the way, look at the Lucky Dog picture. That's changed as well. Ryan Samuelson has actually climbed up to 11th. He got around McRae and Ammon, and he has reclaimed the Lucky Dog position. So what a battle that has been. And this is a huge battle for the Lucky Dog. Kyle Ammon is on the bumper of the number 16, and this caution is going to be coming out imminently. It could come out at any moment. So these guys are giving it everything they got. Does Ammon use the bumper? No, he's going to look low. Here he comes side by side. Ammon's got the preferred line, and he drops back a little bit. That, I think, is going to seal the deal for the number 16.
Well, we shall see. He's got at least probably one more turn before the leaders get up towards the towards the start finish line. See if Ammon can get up there and take that away from Ryan Samuelson. They know it's at stake. We both know that. As they get around turn 3, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to catch him. So Samuelson looks like he will indeed bring in the Lucky Dog. He will get up on the lead lap with the rest of the group up front. So we'll see how he does. Ammon in the back. He'll have a Lucky Dog chance himself, maybe on the next caution, if we see one. But it's been pretty clean all the way up to this point as we end this first stage pretty amicably. Delaney's still in front with Benefield and Stone behind him, and Taylor, Miller, Hicksbaugh 4 through 6, and that's been pretty consistent with how things have run most of this race so far.
Absolutely. And rounding out the drivers who got stage points on that stage, Sean O'Brien, Kevin Steele, and Brandon Pierce. And of course, Dustin Hall is going to round out your top 10. So all of those top 10 drivers on the left-hand side of the screen are being awarded the appropriate amount of stage points, depending on where they finished. And after Jonathan Delaney gets his car serviced, we'll go ahead and pull him into the booth and have a word with our stage winner. Of course, I don't want to talk to him while he's getting that car serviced. Might be the few issues. So we'll let him get that car fixed up, ready to go. And these pit stops always pose a bit of an opportunity, Chris. You got everybody making their way down pit road. If the leader or the car ahead of you just messes up their pit stop a little bit, maybe they overshoot their stall, maybe they have a bit of a slower exit, you can pounce and get an extra spot for the restart.
Yeah, you absolutely can. That makes things a whole lot more tragic if that does happen. But when you have a lot of cars in pit road, you got a lot of pit road traffic, that can definitely happen as things take place in front of you. But everybody in the top 11 has gone into pit row at this point. See where that ends up with everybody. Cameron Stone has come out of there. Looks like he's in the one spot. We'll see if Delaney can work his way back up. But it's been a fairly uneventful pit. A whole 26-second pit stop for Jonathan Delaney. That is not ideal, as everyone else in front of him and behind him is working on a 15 just about. So not sure exactly what happened with Delaney's pit stop, but that could be what you're talking about right there. Pit road mishaps can lead to very big differentials between you and the rest of the pack.
Well, let's ask John about it. We're going to bring him into the booth and see exactly what happened. Jonathan Delaney, you got a copy?
I do, yeah.
Well, John, it was a really great stage one. Worked your way through the field almost flawlessly. You made it look easy out there. And once you got to the front, you played the pit stop perfectly, and you got the stage win. What's the plan going forward?
I do the same. For some reason, during my pit stop, pit crew decided to change the right sides twice. So I'm down a set on the right sides, and I'm just gonna have to make sure that I don't run out of tires. That's my big concern right now.
All right. We were wondering about that. We noticed the 26-second time. We wondered what had happened, but an extra set of tires. That's interesting. I've never really seen that on the simulator before. Well, anyways, I believe the pace car lights are going to be going off next time around, John, so we'll let you get back to your team chat. Good luck with the rest of the race, and hopefully we'll talk to you next stage.
Yeah, thank you.
Jonathan Delaney leading the race and winning stage one. Congrats to him on the stage win. Hopefully he can work his way back up into the pack as everybody gets gridded back up and ready to go for this second stage. Lap 210 marks the end of the second stage. 3 stages at Texas Motor Speedway today. First race of the 100% Cup Series playoffs, as we are getting things ready to go again. See if they make this, see if the pace car makes this sharp left turn and gets out of the way so we can get back to some green flag racing once more. Cameron Stone 1, Jason Taylor 2, your first row coming out of the grid. Mueller Hicksbaugh row 2, that's 3 and 4 places. Kevin Steele and Brandon Pierce row 3, with Delaney sitting in the 7th spot, your stage 1 winner. See how fast it takes him, how long it takes him to move up into that spot. And Adam Benefill, who led a majority of the laps in stage 1 as well, he is back in number 9 position. So another good talent back there at the back of the lead lap, trying to get back up towards the top 3, top 4 of this race.
Yeah, I gotta wonder what happened to the 83 on that pit sequence. I know Benefiel is one to kind of take his time in the pit stops early on. He's been known to step away from the sim rig and get a drink or do whatever else he wants to do in the early stages. He's done that a number of times. So possibly what happened there, I'm not sure. But again, that's just confidence out of that number 83. When a guy climbs out of the car during a pit stop to get a drink and climbs back in, that's a guy who's pretty confident that he can regain those positions. And that's what makes Adam so fun. He's just quite a personality, and I think he makes it quite interesting for the fans at home and, of course, the competitors as well, because they just never really know what the driver of that 83 is going to do. But the pace car lights are off. It's getting ready to dive into pit road. Jason Taylor is looking to capitalize on the good run that he's had so far tonight. Maybe get out front, maybe lead some laps, but Cameron Stone's not going to make it easy on him. He's got Robert Miller right behind him. Here we go. Pace car is off. Cameron Stone checks up the field a little bit. Looks like he slows down, maybe a bit of a brake check, and then he gets on the loud pedal. So that was quite an interesting start.
I mean, if you get a pretty good restart going back that way, you brake somebody, get them going slower, and then you hit the gas, knowing exactly when you're going to do so. That could be some good strategy from him. He's got about 0.2 of a second on Robert Mueller right now, and that is going to be a problem going on. I believe that was turn 2, as there was something going on behind the leaders. Not exactly sure what happened in front of me, but that's a bit of a nobody was seemingly losing pace and no caution flag out.
Second place, Jason Taylor got a little bit sideways coming out of turn 2. Went all the way from 2nd down to 9th now, and of course he's got a little bit more wear on those tires than anybody else. When you slide those tires and you flat spot them, that's never a good thing. We'll see if we can dial up a replay on the 3Wide TV replay, if that's a thing we can do. We're kind of working under different circumstances this week, so that's why some of the overlays and things have been slightly different. But if we can get a replay, we'll pull it up. If not, we're just going to keep following along with the action. Jason Taylor trying to reclaim those positions, and we do have a replay, so we're going to follow along with this 37, Chris. He got really sideways coming out of turn 2, and I got to think he was probably so used to the warm tires and the worn tires that when he got to the cold, fresh tires, he was not expecting how loose this was about to get.
Yep, that sounds about right, and that's a hard thing to try to plan for, as turn 2 was a bit of an issue for Taylor on that particular occasion, but he was able to hold it together, hold the green flag out at the very least. Credit to him for that, and keeping everybody moving at top speed. We have not seen a green flag caution to this point in the race. Knock on every piece of wood you have. It's been a fun green flag race so far, with some movements among the top leaders, and everybody racing clean, racing courteous, and it's been really a breath of fresh air for those that see caution fests week in and week out with other racing leagues, whether it be real life or in the sim.
Absolutely, and you know, it makes it easier on the drivers as well.
Yep.
These full-length races are so exhausting mentally and physically, and it only gets exaggerated when you have a lot of yellow flags. But here we go, Robert Mueller making a move with a little bit of help from Jonathan Delaney. At number 9 was giving the 10 a good push down the straightaway. He was able to get to the inside of Cameron Stone. Now he is going to be side by side for the lead. Gets the advantage. Question now is, what does Jonathan Delaney do? Does he try to stay behind the 10 and ride behind him until he's clear, or does he make a move? Well, he is clear. He's going to dive to the outside.
Yep.
He's going to side draft a little bit. Delaney known for some really aggressive side drafts in the past, and we've seen him make some successful passes, but here comes Adam Benefiel. He's going to try to make it 3 wide.
He is indeed. They're going to work themselves up towards the lead, as all 3 cars in a very tight scenario, only about 1/10 of a second separating those 3 top cars. Delaney, Benefiel, and Miller are trading the lead at the moment, with Benefiel and Delaney going back and forth. This is an absolute show, and somebody trying to put their foothold in the lead, but nobody really wants it, as both of them going after it with some small convictions, but you do call it out. There's contact there, trying to take the lead, but nothing doing, as these two are still 1 and 1, right behind the next.
That could be big, Chris. That wasn't minor contact. He got hit pretty much square in the door, which on this simulator, you get any amount of aero damage, especially at 1.5 miles with the high downforce package. That could be detrimental to the handling of your race car, and it looks like Jonathan Delaney is just continuing to plummet through the grid. And man, not the start to the second stage that the driver of that number 9 wanted to have, but this is the thing, Chris, when you make a lot of rivals throughout the season. I mentioned earlier, he's a very talented driver, Jonathan Delaney, but he's also controversial. He's controversial because he gets involved in a lot of on-track scuffles. You know, he's not afraid to put the bumper to somebody. He's not afraid to aggressively side draft and maybe give somebody a little bit of damage doing so. And you make enough rivals, and they're going to make it hard for you to finish a race. So, man, it's unfortunate that he has such a good car, and that's kind of how his stage started. But you got to think about these things, you know, especially in the playoffs. You want to be making more friends than enemies.
Well, the nice part is it's only about 0.6 of a second between the first spot and the 10th spot where Delaney sits at the moment. So that's not a terrible distance for him to try to make up if he can get himself back going again. So that's something to keep an eye on but he's got to move his way through the grid consisting of people like Jason Taylor, who fell back a little bit at the start of this stage, people like Sean O'Brien Jr., who was in the lead spot for a couple of laps, Kevin Steele, who's had a pretty good run in this second stage. He's up 9 positions from the start. We have Cameron Stone and Robert Miller, who've been in the top 5 consistently all day long. And then, of course, Adam Benefield, who is your majority lap leader at Texas. Good racing, all told, from just about everybody, as Delaney's moved up a spot to number 9. He'll be my racer to watch over the next 20 laps or so to see where he ends up.
Yeah, and I am seeing a little bit of damage on that number 9, at least from my perspective. Again, I have to mention this every time, but sometimes damage is on client side and not on server side, so I could be seeing damage that doesn't actually exist, but I am seeing it, so there is a possibility the handling of that car is hindered, but even if it is, he seems to be sticking with the pack, and like you said, he did make an overtake, so he's up to P9, now trying to get around Jason Taylor, which it isn't going to be easy. Jason Taylor has been one of the fastest cars tonight. If we can dial up a replay of the overtake, we'll do that. I would like to take a second look at that, just because it was really, it all happened very quickly, and I feel like there's a little bit to break down there. But for now, Sean O'Brien Jr. battling it out with Bryson Hicksbaugh, who's currently just clinging on to the top 5. Kevin Steele a little bit further back from them. Steele is another driver who he is all the way up into 4th. He's really worked his way through the field, and he's not in it for points, but I'll tell you what, he is driving with a vengeance, Chris. This is a driver who was incredibly dedicated to the playoffs, to the point of a sort of devastating storm rolled through his hometown. He has been without electricity for some time, and to race on Saturdays, he hooks up a generator. So every weekend he's hooking up his sim rig to a generator just to show up, just to race. And despite all that effort, his playoff run was incredibly unlucky. He got involved in a lot of incidents, and just about none of them were his fault. He got caught up in other people's incidents almost every week. And despite being a very talented driver, he was taken out of the playoffs a lot sooner than I think any of us expected. Kind of took the wind out of his sails. He was really kind of down on himself about it for a while. But the thing about Kevin Steele is he comes back all the time. We don't call him Kevin Consistency Steele for no reason. He's never in that slump too long. And to see him up in the top 5, it's good to see, and not at all surprising.
Taking a look at Sean O'Brien, he's in the 5 spot, took the spot away from Bryson Hicksbaugh. Hicksbaugh has moved back a couple positions as he's moved behind Jason Taylor. Mentioned Delaney, he's moved up into number 8, now number 7 as he takes over Bryson Hicksbaugh's spot. So, and Brandon Pierce is fighting for that spot as well, where Bryson Hicksbaugh currently sits. But Sean O'Brien working up towards Kevin Steele. Kevin Steele, been one of your major movers and shakers in this second stage. He's been racing a very consistent race car, at least to this point in this second stage. And I'm watching how close he can get up towards Robert Miller in that 3 spot. Very good work so far from the top 3, basically keeping things consistent as we get to about the 127 mark of this race. Things are getting a little bit tighter. Not a lot of distance between the leaders and the middle of the pack so far in this second stage. One of the benefits of stage racing. Good stuff so far at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, it's been a great show so far. You don't always expect Texas to put on a nail-biting event. Usually the exciting part of Texas is the strategy. It always puts on a great strategy show, but tonight we got the best of both worlds. We got a little bit of strategy. We've had some amazing on-track battles. It's just been a phenomenal event all night long, and going back to Delaney, he's got a lot of time. Stage 2, lap 210, and we're only at lap 128. And as I mentioned him, we're riding on board with Sean O'Brien, and he makes the pass coming through the quad oval. So if that number 9 is damaged at all, it's not holding him back.
Kevin Steele, a little bit aggressive on these turns, seems to be closing the distance between him and the 3rd spot, Robert Miller. The other thing, though, I'm noticing about the top 3, they're starting to find some separation on those straightaways. Kevin Steele catching up on the turns, but then the top 3, including Miller, Stone, and Benefield, are getting away from him a little bit on those straights. So something that Steele's going to have to try to figure out, be able to keep that speed coming out of those turns and maybe catch up a little bit as he closes some distance. But at least he's been consistent so far, sitting in that 4 spot.
And that straight line speed, that could definitely be a matter of the draft. What the advantage is for these top 3 drivers, Benefield, Stone, and Miller, is that it's a lot easier to organize 3 cars into one line and draft with each other than it is this bigger pack behind. I mean, you got, what is that, 7 cars in the second pack. You can't organize 7 cars. It's like trying to draft a caterpillar. They're going to be going left and right, and they're not going to be getting the advantage of the draft like those top 3 are. So that might be where some of that straight line speed is. We'll have to find out, as Robert Mueller is sticking right with Cameron Stone, who in turn is with Adam Benefiel. But that second pack, I think you're right, Chris. There's some potential in that pack because that number 24 machine is really fast through the corners. He's running some very aggressive lines, and if he could just get close enough to get the draft of the cars in front of him, I could definitely see him being a part of this battle.
Right now, he needs to play some defense. He's got Jason Taylor right on his bumper. So watch for Jason Taylor to make a move here, as those guys are trying to, at least Jason Taylor's trying to use the draft off of Kevin Steele. As the 2 behind them, Sean O'Brien Jr. and then Jonathan Delaney has moved into the 7th spot as well, just behind Sean O'Brien. They are neck and neck as well, as those 4 cars seem to be working on trying to draft together, or so it would seem. Things getting tighter in the middle of that pack. Everything behind Delaney is pretty tight, as well as Hicksbaugh is right on his bumper. So keep an eye on that. Those 5 cars right there. You mentioned drafting a Caterpillar, but they seem to be working pretty good single file as it sits right now. No one looking for an inside line as it sits. We'll see if that changes.
Yeah, it definitely could change. Like I mentioned earlier, the lines that are preferred and where you can put your car, it changes all throughout the event. Things like laying down rubber or just the temperature of the track fluctuating can kind of change what your options are in terms of lines. And I have noticed that today here at Texas, we've not had a cloud in the sky. A lot of these drivers probably hoping for some cloud cover, get the track cooled down a little bit, make the car a little bit freer and a little bit easier to drive. But no, we're 134 laps in, and I don't think I've seen a cloud since we showed up.
200 laps to go before this race is done. A lot of laps left all told, but a nice consistent run from Adam Benefiel, your majority race leader. He continues to absolutely torch this track, and they are starting to work on some tire wear here as you start to see lap times getting into the 31s and late 30s, as they have to keep an eye on where their tires are at, getting into the roughly about 40 laps and 30 laps in to this second stage. Things getting a little bit more worn down on tires, a little bit less fuel in the tank as well, as things are going to get a little bit loose around these corners. These cars weigh a little bit less.
Absolutely. I should mention Jonathan Delaney just hit a bit of a stroke of luck there. He was battling side by side with Bryson Hicksbaugh, who, I've mentioned Jonathan Delaney. He's made a few rivals over the season, but I would say Bryson is probably the only driver in the field that is truly a logo rival. Like if this was the old EA NASCAR games, there would be a red indicator over Bryson's car for Jonathan Delaney. They've gotten into it a few times, and when they were racing side by side a few laps ago, Bryson was not making it easy on the number 9. He was side drafting him, running him up the track, doing everything he could to kind of stall out his momentum. But then, in a stroke of luck, the 65, Sean O'Brien, who was also in that battle, got a little bit loose in the middle of the corner, had to let off the throttle to get the rear end to come back to him. And Bryson also had to lift. He was right behind Sean O'Brien, so he had no choice but to get off the throttle. That allowed Jonathan Delaney to make a move on the outside. He was able to keep his foot in the throttle, and he made the overtake, has a gap to Bryson, and now he can breathe a little bit easier.
Well, he's not breathing too easy right now. He's coming up right on the 37 of Jason Taylor. Delaney was your racer to watch over the last 10 or so laps, and he's moved up a couple positions here, and he's working on trying to catch up to the rest of the pack. Maybe if those 3 can get organized, they can maybe start to work on catching up to the leaders, who are about a full turn ahead of them as they go along this front straightaway once more. Benefiel, Mueller, Stone, 1, 2, 3, Steele, Taylor, and Delaney, your top 6 so far at Texas Motor Speedway. 100% Cup Series is about not quite halfway through, a little less than 200 laps to go in the first lap of these playoffs. If you guys are just joining us, welcome in. Thank you and for spending your evening with us here on 3 Wide TV and the 100% Cup Series. The race, the grid on your left-hand side shows highlighted names in red. Those are your playoff drivers, with the exception of Damaris Hickenbottom, who should be highlighted but is not at the moment. So there's something to keep in mind as these guys get into the last stretch of the season here on 100% Cup.
Absolutely. One thing I'm wondering about this stage, Chris, is how do these drivers adjust their strategies? Because I feel like they've learned a little bit from that first stage. Bryson now knows what kind of track position he can gain with that undercut and how he's going to kind of cycle out in relation to the field. So the question is, was he happy with that strategy? Does he do something different this time? Does possibly Adam Benefiel take a bit of a longer run than he took before? And furthermore, what I'm really curious is, does Black Flag Motorsports recreate their strategy from the first stage? They were the team that stayed out the longest, that number 37 and that number 65. They pretty much ran that thing dry. They were coasting it into pit road before they came down, and it seemed to work out pretty decent for them. I mean, they didn't gain quite as much as they probably would have hoped, but they didn't lose anything either. So really, if you're not gaining and you're not losing, staying out is still the safer option. Because pitting early, one thing we didn't really mention when we were talking about strategies, but when you pit early and you take that undercut, you do assume a bit of a risk, because at 1.5 miles, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to go a lap down to the leader when you pit. And if a caution comes out while you're a lap down, that could very easily trap you.
Jason Taylor is given the inside up to Jonathan Delaney, and actually Jason Taylor falling back a couple positions as Sean O'Brien and Bryson Hicksbaugh move ahead of him. But now Jonathan Delaney is looking right at the rear bumper of Kevin Steele. There's about a half-second gap between the two of them, so that's a matchup to watch going forward. Sean O'Brien in the 6th spot, just behind Delaney by about 0.2 of a second as well. So things getting a little bit more interesting as far as the 5 and 6 positions go. But Kevin Steele still plenty ahead, trying to keep that gap between him and Delaney intact. And Steele's ran a very good line these last 10 to 15 laps or so as he works in 4th position, where he seems to be pretty comfortable.
And 1 lap ago, Jason Taylor in that number 37 had another scary moment, just like the beginning of the stage. Got loose coming out of turn 2. That time he almost didn't save it. He was clear down on the apron before he got that thing brought back around. Amazing talent out of that 37. I mean, I can't stress enough to viewers at home how hard it is to correct these cars once they step out that much. But Jason Taylor's done it not once but twice. And while that's a good thing, and it definitely shows the talent he has, Chris, you can't be sliding your tires like that. He is absolutely putting a lot of unnecessary wear and tear on that car. And the thing is, it's a snowball effect. Once you slide once and you put that wear on your tires, well, you're more likely to slide again and again and again, and it's just going to keep adding up if you can't get the handling of that car corrected.
Kind of like a slide multiplier. The more you slide, the worse it gets, and the harder it is to save as well. And things start to get out of hand a little bit. So that's something that Jason Taylor's going to have to watch out for as he starts to think about maybe working on getting in a fresh set of tires. Taking a look at the top 3, they're still in pretty good position to draft off each other, and they're doing a pretty good job of that. Benefiel, Miller, and Stone, they're within about a full second of each other, all told. And things are pretty tight up front with those 3, but there's a pretty big gap between 3 and 4 as the middle of the pack works to catch up. We are going into lap 147 on Texas Motor Speedway. Got to get to 210 to end the 2nd stage here at Texas. We should start to see some thought processes revolving around pit stops soon. And I'm keeping an eye on Bryson Hicksbaugh, who's your first pit man in the 1st stage, to see if he decides to go a little bit early again, or if he pushes it back a little bit and works on the tires he has.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. It's going to be really fascinating to watch. I do know that I believe we went green on lap 108, as yellow flag laps do count in this league. When you take into account that Bryson pitted on lap 47 in stage 1, well, 108 plus 47, that's going to be lap 155. If he chooses the same strategy, that would be another 47 lap stretch. So I would say that's about the earliest we're going to see anybody come down pit road. If the first stage was anything to go off of, then pit road's going to get real busy, probably around lap 163, 164. That's when a lot of these guys are going to be making their way down, getting those fresh tires. Jonathan Delaney has a little bit more to worry about in that regard after that kind of disastrous stage 1 pit stop. He mentioned it. For some reason, the pit crew put on a set of right sides, put on a set of left sides, and then immediately took the right sides back off and used another set. So I'm not sure how that even happens. I got to wonder if that maybe wasn't an issue with the simulator or possibly a setting that maybe he's got a pit crew that manually checked the box. It was very strange. You don't see that very often, but regardless, it put him in a very tight situation on tires compared to the rest of the field.
Looking at Cameron Stone right now, I'm almost thinking he's going to want to try to make a move here on Robert Mueller. He was taking a very aggressive line to the bumper of Robert Mueller, but then there's also some traffic coming up on Cameron Stone as Steele. No, never mind. I thought it was hearing a car by him. Maybe not so much, but either way, there's still a pretty good gap between Cameron Stone and Kevin Steele. All told, about 4.5 seconds between the two of them, 3 and 4. But now you start to see Miller and Stone go back and forth a little bit, and Benefield is more than happy to let them go at it behind him, as he's more than happy to continue leading laps in this race and gathering up points.
Absolutely, and Benefield with that half a second gap, that's probably the most comfortable I think a leader has been all night long. Robert Miller being half a second back, that gives him a little bit of room for air, a little bit of breathing room. Jonathan Delaney was pretty much constantly under fire until the end of that stage where he was able to get out to a 2-second lead. But for a long time, second place was only a couple tenths back from him. So it was a very close battle in stage 1. It's looking to be pretty close in stage 2. Again, that green flag pit sequence is approaching, which could shake up this running order. One thing to point out right now is that the battle for the lucky dog is really, really intense. I just watched Kyle Ammon make the move on Preston McRae to move up into P12, which is the first car 1 lap down. Ammon just barely missing out on the lucky dog in stage 1. We followed along with that battle. For those of you just tuning in, it was Kyle Ammon and the number 16, Ryan Samuelson. They were duking it out. Preston McRae was right behind them as well in contention. And they were bumper to bumper at the end of this stage trying to get that lucky dog, and ultimately Samuelson came out on top, and Ammon was the one that came up short. So now he's got another opportunity at it here in stage 2. He's able to get around Preston McRae. It looks like he's got a pretty solid car to hold on to that position, so we'll follow along. But Samuelson currently 15 seconds back from the leader. And, this lucky dog battle, that's the thing, Chris. It's going to change all throughout the stage, because when you got a guy as fast as Adam Benefield out there, you never really know how many cars are going to go a lap down. And every time he laps somebody, that changes the lucky dog.
Yeah, 100%. Makes things very, very problematic for those at the back of the pack trying to get themselves on the lead lap. As we continue on, going into lap 155. And we have one. It is Bryson Hicksbaugh. He is consistent with his pit strategy. He is going in the first pit man of the second stage as well. We'll see if that benefits him going into the latter part of this second stage. With as many laps left in the second stage, though, he might actually be good for the rest of this run, albeit he'll have some pretty worn tires at the end of the stage.
Yeah, he's following kind of the same strategy as stage 1, so I think he should be all right. But again, he's probably going to have to save a little bit. You mentioned how worn those tires will be, and you're absolutely correct. So he was happy with the strategy in stage 1, stuck with it for stage 2. I think we're going to see a few drivers kind of follow a similar strategy to what they did before, but you never know. A new stage, a new pit stop, it's always a new opportunity to change up your strategy, try to get the advantage on the competition. If you can't pass them on track, maybe you can pass them in pit road. But Adam Benefield continuing to lead by 0.5 seconds over Robert Miller. Both of these drivers turning nearly identical lap times. It's really impressive how close these guys are. Cameron Stone right behind them in third. He's about 1.4 off the leader. Cameron Stone, his car, the setup he has is kind of interesting to me, Chris, because it seems like he's really fast on the short run, and then the long run he falls off. But at the very tail end of a tire run, right at the end of it, it's like he gets a second wind, and his car actually becomes a little bit faster than the competition, which you don't always see. Usually if you're not good in the long run, you're not good at the tail end of the run either. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure if he's just maybe keeping it back a little bit until he can take some spots ahead of him, and then he starts putting on the gas, flipping the switch, so to speak, and not exactly sure. Something to keep an eye on. He's been pretty consistent with it. You're right, basically throughout the entirety of this race.
Yeah, I mean, he closed in. He's 1.3 back now. I mean, I just mentioned he was 1.4 back, and he brings it down to 1.28. So, again, that second wind's kind of activating for that 57. But the thing is, being fast that late in a run isn't massively helpful because, again, it's bordering on the pit stop. So you're only going to have a few laps of having that advantage before you make your way down pit road. And speaking of pit road, Cameron Stone is going to make his way down here on lap 160. Lock the tires up a little bit on that apron, but luckily Texas has one of the more forgiving pit road entries compared to some of the tracks that we've gone to recently. You have a little bit of a breathing buffer between the exit of turn 4 and the entrance of pit road, and the change in banking isn't quite as brutal as it has been at other roads. So these guys shouldn't have too hard of a time navigating pit road, which is a load off their minds. I'm sure they got enough to think about here in the round of 8, trying to figure out who do I got to beat to move on, what do I got to do for the point situation. And Cameron Stone's teammate is going to join him one lap later here on 161. Kevin Steele makes his way down pit road. Doesn't lock up his tires. But it sounds, yep, looks like Robert Mueller making his way down, and pit road getting real busy.
It is indeed. And you were thinking about 163. We're looking at lap 161, where everybody starts to work their way in. Jonathan Delaney now is one of the beneficiaries of that. He's moving in to the 2 spot. Adam Benefiel has gone in, and that should give Jonathan Delaney the lead. All told, once he finishes up, if he decides, nope, he's going to take pit as well. So, yeah, everybody with the exception of Brandon Pierce and Ryan Samuelson has gone through and taken a pit stop, it looks like, on this lap. So things becoming a bit interesting, and you got to see what kind of advantage it'll give Bryson Hicksbaugh, who's got to work his way up. But he's back a little bit as well in the 8 spot.
We'll have to see if we can dial up a replay of that. Sean O'Brien Jr. got in the grass on pit road entry. I'm not sure if he was forced off. He was right next to Jonathan Delaney, so I'm not entirely sure if he was forced off or if he just came in a little too hot and went to the grass to avoid Jonathan. But he did lose a little bit of time doing that and may incur a penalty because iRacing does have an unsafe pit road entry penalty. I believe if you touch the grass after the commitment cone, that is penalty worthy. So we'll see if he has a normal pit stop time or if he gets held up in his stall. Preston McRae pulling in front of him there. And Brandon Pierce making his way down the backstretch, and you're going to have Jonathan Delaney cycling out just behind him. Pierce is one of the holdouts, pretty much one of 2 holdouts, I believe. Ryan Samuelson running second. He has yet to come down pit road alongside the 38. And Kevin Steele and Jonathan Delaney looking to unlap themselves here under green. And luckily for John, he's got a lot of cars around him that he doesn't really have to worry about. The 38 isn't going to give him much trouble. He's on older tires. Kevin Steele, as far as I'm aware, there's no bad blood between these guys. They're not rivals. They haven't really traded any paint this year. So a lot of cars around him that he's not going to have too much of an issue with. He can use these fresh tires to a good advantage and hopefully cycle out pretty well.
Yeah, Jonathan Delaney does move back a little bit here into the 8th spot. Benefiel going to work his way back to the front as well. But Brandon Pierce leads some laps for the first time today. He's got about a 2-second gap between him and Ryan Samuelson, who's moved up into the 2 spot. Cameron Stone's been about set in that 3 spot all day long, and he's back up there now. Robert Mueller just behind him by about half a second. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward. Getting into lap 165. Now we got fresh tires for a majority of the group. Kyle Ammon was one of those that did not take a pit stop on that run either. So, but he's in the lead. He's in the lucky dog spot. If he decides to do that under caution, that might be an opportunity for him. But Pierce, Samuelson, Stone, 1, 2, 3, Miller, Hicksbaugh, Benefiel, your 4, 5, 6 so far as we get into lap 166 of 334 needed for this race.
And I believe I just saw the number 37 getting loose once again. Something is not right with the handling of the 37 machine for Jason Taylor. He's seemingly struggling with that car, and I'm wondering what it is, because he seemed pretty confident in practice, pretty confident in qualifying now under race pace. It seems like the car is just getting away from him, which is what makes it especially strange, Chris, is that a lot of these drivers, you look at the way they're navigating these corners, and they're fighting tight. Their cars are trying to push up the track. The front end wants to wash out. Jason Taylor has got the exact opposite issue. His rear end is trying to kick out, which is completely opposite of what the rest of the field seems to be having.
Brandon Pierce sitting amongst some lap traffic at the moment. See if he decides to get a little bit aggressive here as you see the 6 car move past him and get up back on to the lead lap if at all possible. And some interesting decision making by Brandon Pierce not to try to push the issue. Probably a safe bet to do just that. Let the lap traffic play around him as he's going to try to use them to draft off of, and maybe use the maybe get a little bit more of a lead on, as he's got plenty of cars around him to do so.
Yeah, plenty of cars indeed, and if he were to get a caution, maybe that strategy would work out pretty well. But he seems to be kind of following what Black Flag Motorsports did in the first stage, just trying to get that long run, seeing what he can do with it here in this stage. Here's a battle on your screen. Cameron Stone and Robert Mueller, these two were pretty close on track before the pit sequence, but now even closer as the number 10 is going to look low, and he thinks about making the move, but not quite enough real estate, maybe. Yep, Cameron's able to close the door just barely. That is not the end of this battle. That number 10 is still right on the bumper as they come through the quad oval here at Texas. He's going to look high, look low. Seems like he's just trying to get that car out of the draft of the 57, trying to make sure that he can get the clean air where he can. And behind them, well, you're about to have player 3 enter the game because Adam Benefield is right there with him.
And watch for the slingshot here. That's great work from Miller. Miller's going to try to take the inside, and he will successfully do so into the 2 spot, at least for the moment. We'll see what comes out of turn 4. But what a run by Robert Mueller on the inside of Cameron Stone. Benefield's going to take that spot as well and slingshot past both of them. Benefield's right on the bumper of Robert Mueller, but he does back off a little bit and give Miller a little bit of space. That was tight, and it looks like Benefield was trying to take advantage of the slingshot off the draft in front of him and nearly did just that as he works trying to the inside.
And this battle is essentially for the lead. Ryan Samuelson is still out front technically, but he has yet to pit. So once he comes down pit road, that's going to put these guys up front. The 16 making his way down pit road. New leader, number 10, Robert Mueller. But again, not easily. He's got a competition right behind him. Adam Benefield was pushing him into turn 1, like you mentioned, Chris. And he was nice enough that, like you said, he backed off the throttle. We gave him room going into the corner. Thing is, when we get closer to the end of this thing and the aggression levels go up and the intensity rises, maybe some of these drivers aren't so nice.
That could very well could be going into lap 172 at Texas. The asphalt getting hotter as we get later into the day, and these tires starting to show some early signs of wear already, as you see lap times getting into the 30s after we just had decent pit stops really for the entire grid. Miller, who has been in the 2 and 3 spot basically all day, has a couple of laps led under his belt as he continues to move on. Cameron Stone in the 3 spot, and Benefield's taking over the lead on the inside. What a run from him into turn 3 and 4. Now he's on the front straight in the quad oval, and a good chance for him to put some separation as he has a really good run on the inside.
That was an incredible move. I mean, he passed Robert like he was standing still down on the bottom line, not only clearing him, but giving himself a 1-car length advantage before they ever even got to the exit of the turn. So a lot of speed out of that 83 machine. I mentioned it before that he's one of those drivers that he doesn't show his hand too early. Well, apparently he's decided that it's time to show his hand. Look at this, a lapped car is going to get around Robert Mueller as well. Looks like Robert might have made a little bit of a bobble there. But that lap car's got fresher tires, and he is closing in on the leader. So this will be fun to see how this battle progresses.
I think Benefield would be a good sport to let the lap car by, maybe give the lap car a chance to get back on the lead lap. That's exactly what he's going to do, give him the inside. Benefield's okay doing that as he tries to play some defense and close the door on charging Robert Mueller. And it looks like they're pretty okay going into turn 3 and into turn 4 as we hit lap 175, need 210 to complete the second stage.
Now, Adam Benefield was a good sport, like you said, but that did still slow him up a bit. Robert Mueller was able to close the gap big time with the help of that lap car. Wasn't able to make the move, but it seems like with the help of the draft here and with 57 behind him, he's staying right with Benefield. And he may have enough in the tank to try to make a move in terms of tire wear and just overall speed in that car. So we'll have to follow along with him here as the number 63, Josh Ward. He is going to continue to pull away a little bit. He, again, has fresher tires than all of the leaders, so he's going to kind of ride off into the sunset. These guys won't have to worry about him. All they're focused on is each other. And then for Adam Benefield, he's going to be doing a little bit of mirror driving. Anytime you have Robert Mueller and Cameron Stone behind you, you're going to be doing a whole lot of mirror driving.
Yeah, and people mirroring what you're doing too. Robert Mueller, he's trying to work that draft to the best of his ability. To Benefield's credit, he's not making it easy. Miller's had to move left and move right, try to stay directly behind him and get that slingshot forward if he can do it. Miller's catching up on the turns a little bit, but Benefield absolutely has him ghosted on the straightaways, and it's been fun to see where his lines take him as he gets closer and closer to that back wall. But he seemingly is able to have it in his car in complete control from the onset. Now, just behind them, Cameron Stone, we talked about him. He's in the 3 spot. Bryson Hicksbaugh has moved his way up to the 4 hole at the moment. He's got about half a second between him and Cameron Stone. Jonathan Delaney's moved up into the 5 spot behind Hicksbaugh. Those two are pretty much neck and neck, about a half second behind each other. But Kevin Steele has moved back into 6. And there's a decent gap between Delaney and Kevin Steele as it sits between 5 and 6 at the moment. And you talked about Jason Taylor, one of the unluckiest guys in the group so far. He's sitting in the 8th spot, but there's about an 11-second gap between Dustin Hall in 7 and Jason Taylor in the 8th spot.
Yeah, quite a large gap indeed. Unlike the gap to second place, which is pretty much hovering around 0.2 seconds. A lot of these drivers are starting to feel the tire wear, like you mentioned, and the cars are starting to slow down a bit, and I think that's kind of where Robert Mueller has excelled all night long. It seems like the long-run speed out of that machine has been really only rivaled by Jonathan Delaney, which we haven't mentioned John in a while, and that's kind of surprising given how well he's ran all night long. But he's in 5th right now, about 10 seconds back, currently facing, again, the logo rival, Bryson Hicksbaugh. I think Ace Moneymaker's been calling John's phone all week long saying, hey, I don't know what you did to that 63 driver, but if I'm going to get angry phone calls, you're going to get angry phone calls. And it's going to be fireworks here, I think, shortly, because the number 9 is definitely faster. The question is, how easily does the 63 give it to him?
I mean, probably not very easy at all. If he has a chance to rub it in the face of one of his rivals, I think he takes it. We'll see how it goes as these guys get into lap 182, down to our last 27, 28 laps of this stage. Things getting a little bit tighter, but the leaders have separated themselves a little bit.
Sorry to cut you off there, Chris. Bryson Hicksbaugh just drove through the grass to get to the inside of Jonathan Delaney. I think that answers my question about what Bryson is willing to do to try and slow the number 9 down. Unfortunately, it seems like that kind of cost the 63 some pace. He lost about a second to Jonathan Delaney there after that incident. He had to kind of check up to avoid causing a pileup. But it was a bold move, and I think that kind of tells Delaney that anytime he gets around that 63 tonight, he's got to be absolutely on the ball. He's got to be fully aware of his surroundings and what's going on, because the 63 is not going to wreck him intentionally. I don't think anybody in this league would wreck anybody intentionally, but he's going to race him hard, and he will definitely push that aggression up a bit. So it'll be a challenge, but for now, Jonathan Delaney was again able to escape the wrath of his rival. He's out front, and now all he's got to do is try and run down Cameron Stone, but that's quite a gap, 11 seconds nearly to the next car ahead.
Tell you what, yes, it was a message sent that was definitely well received by Delaney, that Delaney's going to have to be at the top of his game anytime he comes into the warpath of one Bryson Hicksbaugh. 1, 2, 3, 4, Benefield, Mueller, Stone, and Delaney, with Hicksbaugh and Steele with the 5 and 6 cars. At the moment, there's about 0.6 of a second between Hicksbaugh and Delaney at the time being. But there's quite a big difference between Stone in the 3 spot and Delaney in the 4 as of this moment in time, as the top 3 have moved themselves into very good position to just draft their way forward, and it remains a pretty tight race up front, pretty tight race in the middle of the pack, with plenty of asphalt in between of those 2 offsets of vehicles. We are getting into lap 186 at Texas Motor Speedway. If you guys are just joining us, the names lit up in red on the grid to your left-hand side. Those are your playoff racers, with the exception of Damaris Hickenbottom, who right now runs P13 down a couple laps. He is one of the racers as well in that spot. But good stuff at Texas as we get towards the latter stage, so latter part of the second stage.
As we ride on board with Cameron Stone, you can watch how he's working that steering wheel through turn 1, and it's almost like turn 1 is 2 different corners, because he comes into the corner and he kind of has the steering wheel at a slight angle, trying to arc it in. Then he gets about halfway through turn 1 into turn 2, and he's cranking on that thing. and then coming out of the corner, he's kind of still cranking on it, more so than you would think he'd have to. So turn 1, definitely the trouble spot here at Texas. I think it always has been, especially after the repave. It's a difficult corner to navigate, and honestly, I think in my opinion, it's a very fun corner because it is such a challenge, and it is so different than what you see at a lot of these 1.5-mile tracks. But these guys doing a phenomenal job working their way around this track. Again, we've not had a single caution for cause. The only cautions that we've had have been for stage 1, and that was it. So nobody has really wrecked out of the race. We've had a couple cars get loose, a few single car incidents. We've not had a caution for cause, and again, just an incredible drive by everybody in the field.
Ooh, look at that. That is the 37, I believe. Who's moving up. One of the lapped cars moving ahead of the what is this? Robert Mueller. So that's a big change, as it looks like Benefield's going to let him by as well, or so it would seem. Interesting look to the front of the racetrack traffic at the moment. There's some lapped cars in there as well, and nobody really getting any separation from the other, as they feel more content to try to draft, but fun times to go along the back straightaway here in lap 189.
Yeah, and this lap traffic closed that gap up a lot between Adam Benefiel and Robert Mueller. Pretty much put them bumper to bumper, whereas Benefiel was starting to walk out to a bit of an advantage. That advantage is gone now. That 37 really held him up a little bit, so only about 2 or 3 car lengths between them, 0.2 of a second, and another lapped car in front of them that could definitely play into this battle. And we are coming towards the end of the stage. We're on lap 191, got to get to 210 for the end of stage 2. So for these guys to still be so close after a green flag pit stop, after all the laps we ran under green, and it's only 0.3 that separates them, that is absolutely incredible. And it seems like the lap car ahead of them, Kyle Ammon, he's got a bit of pace in that number 20 machine. He's not exactly slower than the leaders. He's actually running pretty much on par with them. Benefiel might have a slight advantage, but might not be super easy to pass. I think the last thing that number 20 wants is to go another lap down. Currently, Kyle Ammon is 1 lap down in 11th, but if he gets passed right here, it's going to put him 2 laps down and completely out of contention for the lucky dog. It may happen sooner rather than later, because the 83 is probably going to lose his patience. I know Adam Benefiel, he's a very easygoing guy, but if there's one thing he does not like, it's when somebody races him from a lap down. You know, in his eyes, he's thinking, this guy, he's not in it for position. It's just to try to stay on the lead lap. There's no reason to slow down the leader. And everybody has their own opinions on that, I think, as far as drivers and even spectators. My opinion, I think the lap car has every right to battle it out and do what he has to do to bring that car home in as good of a position as he can. You know, he's got sponsors, he's got fans, he's got people that, you know, on the team that want him to bring that car home as good as it can be. So it's perfectly okay not to roll over. What he's doing, racing the leader, that's racing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, too. It's the literal definition of racing. You can race the lead car as a lapped car all you'd like. In my eyes, you're trying to make yourself as appealing as possible to anybody who happens to be watching you. And if that means rubbing a little bit on the racer and slowing the leader down in the process, then absolutely, by all means. And it looks like that is going to give a chance for Robert Mueller to move to the outside, and he will. And that'll give an opportunity. Ooh, some contact there on the inside. Mueller nearly got loose towards the back wall, and it gives a chance for Benefiel to get some distance between him and Mueller in the lapped car.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate. I'm not even really sure what the cause of that was. I mean, Robert Mueller and the number 20, I can't see either one of them was at fault. That was kind of a racing deal where they were both going for the same real estate. You know, one was moving up, one was moving down, and they just ultimately came together. So it's unfortunate for Robert Mueller, but again, I feel like that may have been avoidable contact. Cameron Stone, the ultimate benefactor of that, he's going to slide up into second, 1.3 seconds back from Adam Benefiel, race leader. And, you know, having a 1.4 second lead with only a handful of laps to go in the stage, definitely not too shabby. Benefiel probably feeling pretty good about his advantage. Jonathan Delaney, his car on this long run, not as impressive as I was expecting it to be. He was up to about 12 seconds back from the leader. He was closing in. and over the last few laps, he's lost over a second. He's dropped back to 13.6 from the leader. So he's going to have a pit stop coming up very shortly with this stage. He'll have an opportunity to get any damage fixed if he has any. I would imagine that when Bryson went through the grass and tagged his left rear quarter panel, that may have crumpled it a little bit, which, again, on the simulator, it doesn't take a whole lot, but I'm pretty sure there was contact, so that may be what slowed him down, or maybe he's just not pushing the car because he knows he's not going to make up a 13-second gap. There's no reason to push the car and maybe make a mistake and ruin his race when there's no reason. He's going to get the field stacked up, have another opportunity at it, and that's going to be a show, Chris, because if everything plays out the way that it looks right now, Jonathan Delaney running fourth, let's say this final order of the stage, which it very well may be, they come down pit road, they come out in this order, Delaney is going to be right there with the guy who pretty much doored him for the lead. And you got to think that's going to be a bit of a battle.
Yeah, there's going to be battles all the way through the grid in this third stage. We're showing up for a tight finish just about everywhere on this racetrack. Should be a lot of fun going into the third stage. We got about 12 laps left in this second stage, though, and Robert Mueller is just sitting behind Cameron Stone 3-2 right now, and Adam Benefiel is well ahead of Cameron Stone, about a 1.5 and 6/10 ahead of Cameron Stone. Dustin Hall rounds out your lead lap cars at the moment with a 7th position, 15 seconds back of the leader, with Bryson Hicksbaugh in front of him by about 2/10 of a second. And this is becoming pretty tight as we get to the last part of the second stage, and then everybody grids up again. We do it all over again, and that could create some fireworks at the start of this third stage, as there have been some decent points of contact, decent fights for position amongst most of the racers on this racetrack.
Yeah, and don't look now, but Bryson Hicksbaugh has actually gained over half a second on Jonathan Delaney. He's been closing that gap. The only car separating them right now is Kevin Steele in that number 24. He's riding around in 5th place, and he's kind of the buffer between them. But it looks like that 63 on the long run has found something. He's actually a little bit quicker than the 9 right now. He's got about 8 laps left in this stage, a little over 8, about 8 1/4, to try to get up to the number 9. But I would imagine he's definitely pushing the car, and he's going to get to him if he can. He's not just going to ride where he's at, but we'll have to follow along with that. The battle for the lead, the stage win, is not at any jeopardy right now. Adam Benefiel is
still
for 2 seconds ahead, but the battle for second, you're right, Chris, this is close. Robert Mueller side by side with Cameron Stone.
Yep, and Cameron Stone seems to have conceded that spot for the moment. We'll see if Stone wants to go inside instead. He'll try to take the outside on turn 2, see if he can get there, but it does not look like Miller's going to let him. This is a very tight race. Benefiel, I think, is in a real good spot to take advantage of this fight for second, and it looks like it's going to be Cameron Stone holding on for the moment. But again, Miller's going to try the inside. They are side by side, door to door, coming out of turn 3 and turn 4. See if they can get it towards this front straightaway. Very tight racing for the 2 spot in this stage 2, as Benefiel's about 3.5 seconds ahead of these 2 right now. He is gaining some serious pace, and these 2 fighting all they can to keep on to the 2 spot, with everybody still well behind them at the story so far at the tail end of the second stage.
And Cameron Stone was able to get clear on the high side. I think it was a matter of when, not if, for the high line. I think we were waiting all night long for the top to come in and become a little bit more viable for these guys to make overtakes. And that right there shows how fast the high line has gotten. Cameron was able to make the move, take second place, and what an impressive move it was. In the meantime, a little bit further back, Bryson Hicksbaugh has caught Jonathan Delaney. He is bumper to bumper with only 5 laps to go in the stage, and he is lunging at this number 9. It seems like he is chomping at the bit to try to get up there and force the issue.
Very good stuff so far. Mueller trying to stay on the pace with Cameron Stone, but Stone seems to be put right back in the spot he was in previously, where he's got about half a second on Robert Mueller. Benefiel is more than happy to take the 3.5 second advantage that he's got now as we head into 2:06 of 2:10. this is going to remain your story for the next 3 laps or so, as these guys really get to the tail end, going as fast as they possibly can. Everybody going to get grid back up after getting some fresh tires, so they are running their car to the limit at the end of this second stage.
Adam Benefield still out to a massive lead, 3.6 seconds now. Nothing to worry about for the driver of that Team Conti machine. The battle, like we said, it's going to be for second place. You've got Robert Mueller right on the bumper of that 57. And even though Cam was able to make that overtake, he was able to make the pass, not able to get away. It seems like the pace in all of the leaders tonight has been so close. Bottom right of your screen, that's the track map. You can see where everybody's running in relation to one another. And you can see just from those dots, there's battles all over this track. The pace and the competition tonight has been absolutely fierce. And right now, nothing is changing in that regard, because the number 10 still fighting to get up to that number 57. And I mentioned it earlier, but Cameron Stone, that's a driver who's going to give it all that he has. Not because he feels like his season hasn't been going well or that he needs to win, but because he put in a lot of practice. He's invested in this event. He's been working on the setup, putting in so much time into the simulator while working a full-time job and living a full-time life away from the sim rig. So if he puts in all that time and it doesn't culminate in anything, he's going to be real disappointed. So for Robert Mueller to get around him, it's going to be a tall order, because he's not going to hand it over.
Not easily by any stretch of the imagination. Robert Mueller trying to work that Toyota Camry down towards the inside if he can. He's still got some separation between him and Cameron Stone as they come into the 209th lap of 2:10 to get to the second stage. Or get through the second stage.
And
there's lap traffic ahead of them, I believe.
Yep, that is going to be a lapped car. Can't quite see who that is. That may be the number... Oh, couldn't quite make it out. But once 10 cars come to the completion of lap 210, the top 10 cars, the admins will throw the stage caution. And time is quickly running out because we've taken lap 211. Caution is imminent, and Robert Mueller hasn't quite been able to make the move on Cameron Stone. 4/10 is the difference currently, and then a massive gap of 17 seconds back to Kevin Steele. Jonathan Delaney behind him, as well as Dustin Hall, who's slowly been working his way through the field. Haven't really mentioned him too much, but Dustin Hall in that number 1 as the caution flies really gained a lot of positions at the tail end of that run, past a lot of cars. But there it is, stage 2. Final running order for that stage, the drivers who got stage points: Adam Benefield, Cameron Stone, Robert Mueller, Kevin Steele, Jonathan Delaney, Dustin Hall, Bryson Hicksbaugh, Ryan Samuelson, Brandon Pierce, and Sean O'Brien is actually going to round out your top 10. He's going to snag a stage point, and Ryan Samuelson will be the winner of the Lucky Dog for the second time tonight. He was the first car lap down in 8th. Bryson Hicksbaugh, of course, tail end of the lead lap. But man, we thought this was fun at the start of it, Chris, but it seems like the longer this race goes on, the closer these guys get in competition and the more intense it's been.
Bring on the drama. That's what this third stage is going to be all about, or so it would seem. Very good stuff from Adam Benefield, who's led the majority of laps in this race all told. Once we go green again, we have to get to lap 334 for the end of this race. And there's a lot of racing left to do. As you see top 3 immediately into the pits, we'll see how many else follow them. But fresh 4 and probably a full tank coming into each of those cars. And believe we're going to try to get Adam Benefield up here and talk to him as we talk to him about the second stage win and his plans for the rest of this race. But about a 3-second gap between him and second place at the end of that second stage. So very good work.
Yeah, definitely seems like he's got the car to beat tonight. Again, things could change. This won't be the last opportunity these drivers have to work on their cars. We're going to have 1, if not 2, green flag stops for the final stage. But look at this. Cameron Stone wins the race off pit road, and Robert Mueller actually also beats the 83 out of pit road. So Adam Benefield dropping 2 positions. Cameron Stone moving up to P1. Now, I'm going to try to bring Adam Benefield down to the booth. We'll have a word with him, see how he felt about stage 2.
Sounds good.
Adam Benefield, you got a copy?
Yeah.
Well, Adam, you lost some positions in that stage 1 yellow flag, had to work your way up to the front. You did it, and you made it look easy. How's the car feeling out there?
It feels pretty good. Definitely no complaints. Just gotta keep doing what we're doing, and I think we'll be all right. I think it'll come down to, well, I was going to say me and Delaney, but I don't know what happened to Delaney. He got down on my quarter real tight and watched me up the racetrack, and all of a sudden, I don't know if he hit the wall or what, but anyway, I think it'll come down between me, Cam, or the 10 right here, if Delaney's hurt.
All of you drivers very close in pace. We're going to let you get back to the team chat. Looks like you're going to be going green shortly. Thank you for your time, Adam, and hopefully we're talking to you at the end of this thing.
Appreciate it.
There you go.
Adam out of the booth and seemed pretty calm and collected. Very, very level-headed for a guy who just put on a dominant clinic there in stage 2.
He was going for a Sunday drive. Adam Benefield's been here before. That was a very, very tight and dominant run from him as he put 3 seconds between. Now he's got some time to make up, though, with Cameron Stone and Robert Mueller in front of him as we get into the back straightaway of what likely is the last caution lap before we start this third stage. This becomes a race of, well, now that everybody's gridded back up, we got a race of 8, and we'll see how fast things separate. But yeah, you mentioned it before. We had definitely one, likely 2 pit stops, green flag pit stops, as things continue the way they are. We have yet to see a caution for cause, as you alluded to earlier, knock on all the wood. In regards to there's been no incidents on track that anybody's been able to lose, or that anybody's lost control of. So things have been rather clean, rather courteous, but fast. Very, very fast in just about every stretch of this racetrack. Has been fun.
Absolutely. There's been battles all night long, all over the track. Battles for Lucky Dog, battles for the lead, just battles for track position in general. It's been quite a show, and I think things are going to get even more heated. I mean, we saw how exciting the Stage 2 restart was. We had cars going 3 wide. We had cars getting loose out of the corner. And, of course, we had the battle between Benefiel and Delaney for the lead with a little bit of door banging through the quad oval. I think we're going to see something very similar here in Stage 3, if not more exciting, because now is when it counts. If you can get out front now, put yourself in good position, that means a little bit more than putting yourself in good position all the way back in Stage 1.
Everybody getting gridded back up. This will be the last lap of the pace car before we get going once more. Lap 2:14 is the last one in yellow, maybe for the race, the way things have gone. And green flag imminent as we get this third stage underway. Jonathan Delaney won the first stage. Second stage belonged to Adam Benefiel. Delaney sitting in the 7th spot right now, and Benefiel in the 3 spot after Cameron Stone and Robert Mueller beat him off of pit row. Kevin Steele just behind him. Bryson Hicksbaugh in the 5 spot with Dustin Hall in front of Jonathan Delaney in the 7th position. Ryan Samuelson, lucky dog receiver, in the 8th spot, and Sean O'Brien, your first lap back car, in the 9th position. We're just about ready. Pace car about to get itself off of the track, and we'll have green flag racing one more time for the third stage at Texas for 100% Cup Series. We are just about ready to go. Pace car is off the track. Green flag is about to get flying, and we are back underway for the third and final stage at Texas Motor Speedway.
Man, what happened to Adam Benefiel? He just completely checked up that bottom lane, backed up the entire field. Look at how far out Robert Mueller and Cameron Stone were able to get. He's got the number 24 and the 63 right on his bumper, as well as Jonathan Delaney. And what's weird to me is it didn't look like wheel spin. I didn't see that rear end slide out on him. He just didn't get the jump. So very uncharacteristic of Adam Benefiel. Usually the class of the field when it comes to restarts, just sleeping behind the wheel a little bit, it would seem. Jonathan Delaney getting overtaken by that 24 officially. They were kind of battling side by side, but now that 24 is clear ahead. In front of them, you've got Bryson Hicksbaugh, Adam Benefiel, Robert Mueller, and man, Benefiel didn't get the best restart, but man, oh man, is he closing in quickly. You've got 4 thousandths of a second as Robert Mueller makes the move for the lead. You can see it way up there in John Delaney's windshield. The 10 has taken the lead, pushed the 57 out of the way, and the 83 was able to capitalize on that. So even though he started this stage at a huge disadvantage, Chris, that 83 is already right back up there.
Yeah, absolutely. He's only 15/100ths of a second behind Robert Mueller at the time being. So let's see how fast it will take him, how long it will take him to overtake, as he's already cleared off 5/100ths of that second. It is Benefield and Miller 2-1 at the moment. Cameron Stone has fallen back a bit. He's about 0.2 of a second behind Benefield, with Bryson Hicksbaugh sitting in the 4th spot. Hicksbaugh started this race up front. Don't forget, as it'll be Jonathan Delaney who's moved up into the 5. He's starting to get fast as well. We've been waiting to see when he was going to start making a move. Seems like that is right now. We're on the back stretch of lap 218 for Robert Mueller and Adam Benefield. Benefield working the inside, trying to get past Mueller, and he will do so. Benefield did not take long to make his move. He has the 1 spot away from Robert Mueller, but they are door to door coming along the front straight.
That move right there is what makes Adam Benefield. He dove down to the bottom so aggressively. I think a lesser man probably would have spun that thing out just from jerking the wheel that hard. But Benefield kept that thing under control, maintained his momentum, entered the corner way lower than you'd ever want to enter turns 3 and 4, somehow made it stick, and ultimately got the lead back from Robert Mueller. That was an absolutely textbook move out of that 83, and you're not going to be able to see too many drivers that can do that kind of thing. So what a move. Robert Mueller under fire from Cameron Stone, Bryson Hicksbaugh, Jonathan Delaney, all these cars under a blanket, the top 5 separated by only 0.6.
Yeah, it's very, very tight since the restart. See if Miller can maybe make a move on Benefield, but Benefield not making it very easy on him as Cameron Stone's lurking as well, just 0.2 of a second behind. Miller more content to work up the front straightaway towards the sidewall, or towards the outside wall, but Benefield has been a very aggressive line, able to take some time away, and it looks like Miller's gaining time in the corners, but not very much. It's been pretty even. Their lap times are just about as similar, 5/100ths of a second away from each other with the last lap that these two had together.
And the mind games between Bryson Hicksbaugh and Jonathan Delaney continue. Bryson dove all the way down to the apron to make sure that Delaney couldn't get his draft down the back straightaway. That was quite an aggressive move. At first I thought he was trying to pass the 57, and then I realized he was nowhere near close enough to make that move. So he was just breaking the draft. Like you'd often see in IndyCar when they would go to Indianapolis. You'll see them swerve down the straightaway, and they do it at Pocono as well, just to make sure the car behind them can't, break that air and just follow them through with the draft. So quite aggressive out of that 63, and again, he's not going to make things easy on Delaney, and neither is Kevin Steele. Kevin Steele has really come to life at the end of this event here, Chris. He's got a lot of speed at the end of stage 2, even more speed now with steam. And yes, a move for the lead. Robert Mueller side by side with Adam Benefield. He's got the preferred line on the bottom, but we've seen the top work really well, Chris. So let's see if the 83 can maybe fight back.
It looks like Miller's trying to play some defense on Benefield as well. Cameron Stone's taking the 2nd spot. Cameron Stone's going after Benefield in this 2nd spot right now. We'll see if he can keep it. He's got 3/10 on him, or 3/100ths on him at the moment. But the beneficiary of that is Robert Mueller, as Cameron Stone and Adam Benefield are side by side going into turn 1.
And that battle is going to continue. The cars behind them watching intently. It looks like Cam got a little bit loose. We are 3 wide for a moment for 2nd place. It settles back down to 2 wide. Kevin Steele using all of this battling to close the gap, as well as Dustin Hall. Now that's Adam Benefield's teammate. So he's trying to get up to his teammate, maybe help him out if he can. But still, side by side with Jonathan Delaney, Bryson Hicksbaugh has the bottom. They're both trailing the 57, and the battle for the lead is just as intense. Robert Mueller under fire from Adam Benefield, who seems to be a little bit quicker in 3 and 4, but then loses that time through 1 and 2. So 2 different halves of the track that these drivers excel at, and it's putting on a great show.
Seems to be coming down to Miller and Benefield, but watch out for Cameron Stone. He's starting to gain some time as he's getting some separation, or he's closing that separation a little bit between him and the top 2 cars. Good work from Cameron Stone. Delaney just behind him, but it's about 0.2 of a second difference between him and Cameron Stone. So to see what Delaney can do. Delaney won the first stage of this race and has yet to see the lead after that took place. Through stage 2, we didn't see it, and then we're into stage 3. And is still yet to see it. We're closing in about 110 laps to go in this race, as these guys are really going hard, leaving it all out on the track today at Texas Motor Speedway. We've got at least one more green flag pit stop coming, and it will probably be another 40 laps from now, one would think, as these guys get down to the last part of this race.
Yeah, they got a ways to go. There's going to be a lot more green flag battling before we have any cars come down pit road. We're going to be able to see what these guys have done to make adjustments on their car. Some of these drivers who maybe struggled on the long runs, they've had plenty of time to make some adjustments to try to find that long run speed. But a lot of these guys, I'm sure, were probably pretty comfortable with their cars to begin with. Adam Benefield, Robert Mueller, Cameron Stone, Jonathan Delaney, all of these drivers have been really close to one another. Their cars don't seem like they're very ill handling. Just watching them come through the corner, they really seem like all these drivers have just knocked the setup out of the park from the get-go. But right now, Dustin Hall, that's a driver that I'm watching pretty intently because he has been on the hunt. He was as far back as 16th earlier in the race, now up to 5th, and he's just consistently picking off cars one by one. I'm not sure if he's the fastest car on the track, but he's got what it takes to set his sights on a car, close the gap, and make the move. He's done it repetitively over the last stage, and now trying to recreate that in stage 3 for even more track position.
Robert Miller getting some separation between him and Jonathan Delaney. Benefield in between those two, but Delaney's been trying to work and get some pace. He's actually gotten in front of Cameron Stone into the 3 spot. Benefield starting to get some traction. He's getting closer and closer to that lead car. Benefield's looking real good at possibly taking the lead back as he's only 13/100 of a second away from the first place spot. But Cameron Stone doing what he can to catch up to Delaney, and turn 2 seems to be one of his friends in doing so. Watch him to try to take the inside here on Delaney if Delaney lets him.
And of course, if these leaders start battling, if Robert Miller and Adam Benefield go side by side, Jonathan Delaney is going to be in the catbird seat. He's right there to try and pounce and catch up if they slow each other down, as is Cameron Stone. He's right behind Jonathan Delaney there. And of course, as I mentioned, Dustin Hall also not far behind and slowly reeling these guys in. So we've got an incredible battle in the making as that number 9 slowly reels in these leaders again. And I gotta mention it, I know I'm playing it up a lot, but we've got a driver whose entire stage 2 was pretty much thrown into the waste bin by Adam Benefield. That contact with the 83 was pretty much what set him back so much, and it's taken him this long to climb his way back to the top. So I got to wonder how patient he'll be once he gets to the bumper of that 83. You got to think there's a little bit of a frustration there, but could be that John is looking at the big picture too. You got to think in the playoffs, you can't just go and take out every little rivalry or every little vengeance that you want to take out. You got to be there at the end, and you got to make sure that you can progress into the round of 4.
Vengeance sure is sweet, though, if you can get it. That's one thing for sure. See, oh, that was a very tight. Robert Miller just about hit that outside wall on turn 4. Watch for him to lose some pace here. It'll be a chance for Adam Benefield to potentially take that spot right back with Delaney just behind him, but Miller seems to have kept it together and kept his speed for the most part. Here comes the chance for Cameron Stone. He's going to try to work the inside of Jonathan Delaney for the 3 spot. Stone works the inside, has the inside. Delaney gave it up, no problem. And that is a 3 spot for Cameron Stone, who makes the move on him on the inside. Dustin Hall is your next up behind Jonathan Delaney, about half a second behind.
Yeah, Delaney got a little bit loose out of the corner, and that was the mistake that allowed the 57 to reclaim that 3rd position. But I'm not sure how long he's going to be able to hold it. We know that is a fast car, and with the speed that he has, even though he made a mistake, that doesn't mean he's any slower than he was. So he's going to be on the bumper of that 57. He's going to be trying to reclaim that position because he knows he can't let Adam Benefield and Robert Mueller get out to a huge advantage. He can't let them get out front. If he does, there may not be any opportunity to catch them. When the race stays green, as much as this race has, the further away somebody gets, the more of a mountain you've got to climb.
99 laps to go at Texas Motor Speedway. Had pretty consistent leaders all night long. Robert Miller has led a majority of this 3rd stage. Adam Benefield behind him. Cameron Stone working in the 3 spot with Delaney, about 0.2 of a second behind the 3 spot. Kevin Steele trying to work on Dustin Hall, but he's got about a second and a half to make up as far as that goes. And Bryson Hicksbaugh is right on Kevin Steele's bumper by about 0.1 of a second. So watch for that to possibly explode a little bit down the line. Ryan Samuelson's well behind them in the 8th spot. And then you have the first lap back car in Sean O'Brien Jr. at the 9 position. That's your top 9 so far as we get to the last 97 laps at Texas Motor Speedway.
The race is winding down and things are only getting more exciting, kind of like we predicted they would. I mean, this is when it matters. You gotta push your car at the end of this thing, now is when you got to be out front, and all of these drivers know that. These top 4 drivers, I don't think you could really put a piece of paper between them. They're just on each other's bumper, and really, I think what it comes down to here, Chris, is just who makes a mistake. We saw Delaney make a slight bobble. The 57 was able to get around him. He capitalized on that, but then he didn't drive away. The 9 just stayed right in line, because all these guys' cars are capable of just about identical lap times. It's just a matter of precision and consistency.
Precision and consistency has been the name of the game for Adam Benefield in this race. Talking about, that was Cameron Stone who got real close to that wall. Watch for Delaney to maybe make a move and take that spot if he loses pace. Nearly touched the wall there. I don't think he traded paint, but he got a little bit loose on that back straightaway.
Yeah, he got really loose, and it seems strange to watch, but these mile and a half, sometimes you get towards the end of the straightaway and you have somebody right behind you taking the air off your spoiler, and the force feedback in your wheel gets a little bit floaty, so you can get a little bit sideways. We have contact for the lead. The 83 goes ahead and just barely rubs he does it again. More contact in the left rear quarter panel of Robert Mueller. He is going for it. He's putting his cards on the table, trying to hold this bottom lane. But the thing about a move like that, Chris, is if you're going to bump somebody out of the way, you better make sure you can get around them, and more importantly, that they can't catch back up.
Watch the 14th position car, Kyle Ammon, the 20 car on the track. He has lapped traffic, and he's moving his way up into the field, as is a couple of different lap cars, adding more traffic to that lead lap. And it's making things a lot more complicated when you look at the top 3 cars. You now have 5 cars in that general area, and neither one wants to really give up any position, if at all possible. Robert Mueller has lost the lead to Adam Benefield, in part because of the lap traffic that ended up in front of him. So Adam Benefield becomes the main beneficiary. Jonathan Delaney a little bit behind him. Robert Mueller talking about by about 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, Delaney was also able to get back around Cameron Stone with the help of that lap traffic, and that put him up into 3rd. So he's slowly closing back in on Benefield. Seems like he's got a car that may be able to catch him, but he's going to have to get through Robert Mueller to do it, and that number 10 has been strong all night long. So again, it all comes down to hitting your marks, trying to navigate the traffic as best you can, and just consistency.
Yeah, we're going to start to see maybe some thoughts about some early pits in the next probably 20 laps or so, something to keep in mind as these guys work to get a little farther up. Benefield, Miller, Delaney, 1, 2, 3. Cameron Stone, 0.2 of a second behind Delaney, and Dustin Hall about 1/4 of a second behind Cameron Stone as it sits right now. That's your top 5, with Bryson Hicksbaugh quite a bit further behind him. And this is a 5-horse race, or so it would seem. Lap traffic has moved all the way up. Sean O'Brien on that list, along with Ammon, who we saw a little while ago. This is getting pretty tight, and it's a lot of fun to see how aggressive these cars want to get. But seemingly, it's pretty aggressive, more on defense than on offense, it would seem, with the lead cars.
Yeah, a lot of defense being played tonight, for sure. You mentioned that the pit stops were coming up. If Bryson Hicksbaugh follows the same strategy that he's been following in the first 2 stages, then you're going to see him come down pit road around lap 262. He went green at lap 215. You add 47 laps to that, you come to 262. So that'll be probably the earliest we're going to see a lot of these guys come down, and the majority of the field probably waiting a little bit longer. But it's going to be interesting, because they're going to have to go quite a distance to the end of this thing. Something to the tune of, I think, 62 laps if he pits at lap 62. He'll have 62 remaining in the race. So, man, that's quite a stretch. I think he may have to alter his strategy a little bit for stage 3, just because it's a little bit longer to the end. And I got to imagine he was probably getting a little light on fuel in the first 2 stages. But as the lap count is different, it does open the door for these guys to try something different, something new that maybe wasn't possible in the first 2 stages. So that'll be fun to watch. Adam Benefield's still in the lead. He's got a gap of about 0.5 seconds, so he's finally starting to pull away. Jonathan Delaney lingering at about 0.8 seconds, with Cameron Stone only about 0.2 behind him. So again, like you mentioned, it's a 5-horse race, but I wouldn't count Hicksbaugh out yet. He has shown some long run speed, and I could see him, as this run goes on, getting a little bit closer to the bumper of Dustin Hall, because that's kind of how these first two stages played out. We saw them get a little bit separated early on in the stage, but the tire wear and the pit sequence punched them right back up.
0.8 seconds separates 1 and 3 as far as this race is concerned. If you want to go way farther out than that, top 5 separated by about 1.5 seconds from each other. So things very, very good so far as they come along at the front straightaway for another lap at Texas, getting into 2:48 as the lead car gets across the start-finish line again. And at turn 1, friendly, it seems, to Jonathan Delaney. He's able to cut off a little bit of time from Robert Mueller on that particular turn, but Miller has had a hard time catching up to Adam Benefield for any length of time, and making a move on him has been a pipe dream since Benefield took the lead a few laps ago.
Yeah, it seems like the gap is closing, though. The number 9 and the number 10 both gained on Benefield last time around. Now, that time, Benefield actually got a 10th back on Miller. So the lap times are kind of fluctuating. I think these guys are starting to feel the tire wear, and so their lap times are going to be a little bit less stable, less consistent. So we're going to see Adam Benefield maybe pull out a little bit, then fall back to the field, and vice versa. But Cameron Stone also closing the gap a little bit. He was about 2/10 behind Delaney. Now it's only about, oh, actually, okay, it's about 3/10 now, but they're still single file, well within drafting range. And just like at the beginning of the stage, it's going to come down to which of these guys is the most consistent, who can make the fewest mistakes. And in a few laps, it's going to come down to strategy, because we've seen these pit stops change the running order something fierce. We've seen winners, we've seen losers, we've seen comers and goers when it comes to the pit stops. And that could be the deciding factor at this stage in the race. I mean that is going to be the most important pit stop all night.
And it's going to come with about 50 to 60 laps to go in this race when all is said and done. Watch these cars get a little bit looser as their tires start to wear down as well. Times for laps starting to get to about the 31-second range, which does indicate some tire wear has already started to set in. So watch things as they get a little bit closer. Getting into lap 252 of 334 on race day at Texas. The heat still very much on the asphalt here in the Lone Star State. About half a second separating, about a full second separating 1 through 4 at this point. Dustin Hall's fallen back a little bit, and that is quite a change as Delaney, Miller, Benefield, your top 3, but there is not a lot between them as they get a little bit closer.
Yeah, not a lot between them indeed, and it's an interesting dynamic. You know, you look at these two, you've got Jonathan Delaney, and then you've got the man who fired him before he even had the job. So you got to think these two are going to be giving it all they got, and definitely maybe not too friendly. I don't think they're exactly rivals. I wouldn't say things are as heated between them as, you know, John and Bryson Hicksbaugh. But again, you know, a little bit of trouble in paradise for sure. So a fun dynamic. It's always interesting when these two find each other on the track, and given how good they are, they seem to find each other quite often. Here in the 100% Cup Series, they've had a few notable moments, including Darlington at the very beginning of the year. Cameron Stone kind of made a dive bomb move into turns 3 and 4, and well, by his own admission, dumped Delaney. But here we go. You called it. Robert Mueller making a move on the bottom. He was closing in a little bit here and there. The timing and scoring hasn't quite updated, but the number 10 is clear on the bottom, it would seem, of lap car. Okay, you know, that's why the timing and scoring hasn't updated. As Damari thinking about it. Very similar paint schemes. You're going to have to figure this up in the booth. Black cars, orange numbers on the top, red spoilers. We mess up sometimes.
Yeah, help out the broadcast crew, will you? Every once in a while? Maybe try a different paint scheme. Might make things a little bit easier as we get into lap 256. But Robert Mueller trying to get back into Adam Benefield's rear view, and seems to be making up some time on this turn 4. See how much time he can make up, as there's about 0.6 of a second between them. And but Robert Mueller has put quite a bit of distance between him and Delaney. In fact, there's more distance coming, as there's 0.8 of a second between the two of them now. Delaney's going to have to try to make a move here soon because he is losing pace at a rapid clip, or so it would seem.
You think these paint schemes were bad? Because back at the Daytona 500, Apex, all 4 cars were running the exact same Dale Earnhardt paint scheme with the exact same font. So that was fun to commentate. But you're right. The number 10 is pulling away a little bit from Delaney, and Delaney seems to be struggling on the long run. I don't think that's down to the setup, and I don't think that's down to the driver. I think that's the damage. I think whatever is wrong with that car from the contact when he got into the 83 machine, it's affecting his long run pace. Maybe he has to turn the wheel more in the corners. Maybe it made his car tight, which of course is going to give you more tire wear on the front end, which is going to slow you down over the long run. But whatever happened, he has not had the long run speed that we normally see out of Delaney. I mean, usually you see a race go green this long, and it's always going to be that number 9 out front. But Adam Benefield currently with the 6/10 advantage, Delaney in third, 1.6 seconds back. And Cameron Stone right on the bumper of Jonathan Delaney. He's been kind of lurking there, waiting for another opportunity to get up on that podium. And Dustin Hall about a second and a half back from Stone. So really, these battles are starting to close in between the 9, the 57, and the number 1, because the 1 is, I believe, lapping a little bit faster than the cars ahead. So things could get interesting real quick. But another thing to think about, we're at lap 260. I said it was going to be 262 if Bryson follows along with the same strategy. So very soon, these guys are going to kick off their pit sequence, and there goes Cam. He made the move. I said it. He was just waiting for the opportunity, and there it was.
Yeah, and Benefield working on lap traffic in front of him as he works on getting into lap 260, as you alluded to. Watch Hicksbaugh. He's been the man to watch as far as pit road schemes so far in this race. See if that is indeed a thing. Delaney's moved back into the 4th spot. He's closing the gap pretty nicely on Cameron Stone, though, who has moved into the 3 spot as he's trying to get up back to where Stone was, but about a second and a half between 2 and 3 for the time being. But things at Texas, they're starting to get a little bit more separated, thinking there'll be a little bit of a shuffle come pit row. But this thing is not quite done yet, although Benefield would wish it was. He was super calm and collected between stages 2 and 3. Talked to him for just a moment. The man might as well have had one hand on the wheel and leaning back in his seat. Was listening to the radio while he was driving. He was super chill coming out of that stage 2 win, and he looks to be just about the same leading stage 3.
Absolutely. We did have a couple cars coming down pit road there. You can see it on the corner of your screen last lap. Those are some of the lapped cars that are a few laps down. The kind of odd advantage that being laps down affords you is that you're not going to be running as many laps as the competition because once the leader crosses the line, whatever lap you're on, that's it for you next time around. So you can afford to pit a little bit sooner if you're a number of laps down because you don't have to run those extra laps. So I believe it was Damaris was one of them who came down pit road, possibly the number 6, but they've kind of kicked it off a little early. The lead lap cars are going to be coming down shortly, but Bryson has not followed the same strategy. He's kind of deviated from it, as I kind of thought he might. You know, it would have been a big stretch trying to go 62 laps to the end on full. Probably possible, but not comfortably.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be pushing it across the finish line at that point, probably. And as these guys get going, Benefield, he lapped at 2:12 with the stage. Ryan Samuelson, the only other car on the lead lap that lapped differently than the other 7 cars. He lapped at 2:30. He pit lapped at 2:13, just while we were still between stages. These guys going to start to make some decisions here soon, but entirely green flag racing all day long, with the exception of the stage breaks. Very good racing from everybody involved. Even the small issues that have been handled pretty amicably on the track. Everybody was able to save their car and keep themselves out of trouble. As we start to get into lap 265, we're down to our last 70 laps of this race, if my math serves me correctly. Getting closer and closer to the end of the day at Texas, and these cars have definitely had work in front of them. Very good work so far from these drivers running this full-length race.
Absolutely, and usually we keep tabs on the drivers that take the car behind the wall. Haven't really had time this broadcast because it's been so action-packed. There's always been something to talk about, but it's an update on the drivers who have gone behind the wall. if I can get this pulled up. So it starts with Charles Eaton. He took it behind the wall 10 laps ago. Cody Strom, Alex Brinson, Dalton Mobley, Tyler Pinsino, and James Mullins have all removed themselves from the event. So just a quick update on those guys. But for right now, battle for the lead kind of fluctuating as we approach these pit stops. Robert Miller was as close as 2/10 just a couple laps ago. He had closed the gap big time. But now he's back to 5/10, so falling back a little bit. Cameron Stone, that long run has not been, at least the middle run has not been his friend tonight, and he's kind of fallen back as he has in the past with these stages. Jonathan Delaney not far behind him, so Delaney's starting to close that gap back in. And really, you look at this, Chris, and you've got 5 drivers, I would say, all the way back to Hall. Well, actually, even really Bryson Hicksbaugh. If they got a good enough undercut and they played it right, you could make up 6 seconds on fresh tires if the leaders stay out. So really, these guys are still in the game.
They are, and that could mean some rough strategies trying to get put together at the very end of this race. But I think everyone at this point is waiting for Benefield to go. Once Benefield goes, maybe they feel like they can go as well. But Hicksbaugh was the leader in the pit row earlier. He has no intention of getting into pit row on this lap at the very least. So we'll see how long he's going to go. Sam, you mentioned the alteration to his strategy. And really, I think you were thinking 262 is his earliest. I'm thinking 272 is going to be where these guys, where you see a majority of the leaders go in and see where everybody ends up with about 60 laps to go past that.
Yeah, it'll definitely get busy. I think you're right. That'll be kind of the sweet spot. You know, you're far enough in that you know you can make it to the end, but it's also early enough that you're not really spending too much time on these old tires. So we'll have to see exactly what these guys do. Robert Miller still hanging on about 5/10 back. That's the thing. I think the number 10 and the number 83, they're almost identical in pace. It's just a matter of who can get out front, because this 5:10, the gap has pretty much remained for the last 10 or 15 laps. So you know they're just on the razor's edge in terms of how competitive they are with one another. And it really just comes down to who's got that track position, who's got the clean air, and gives themselves that advantage. So it'll be a very close battle to the end, I'm sure. These cars just identical almost. I mean, even the lines they're running, you can see coming through turn 1, they're pretty much both just hugging that white line as close as they can, a little bit extra grip down there. And then on the straightaway, they're going to arc all the way up, and then through 3 and 4, they're going to run somewhere towards the middle, just following in one another's tire tracks. And sometimes, you know, if you're the following car, it's a good idea to kind of move around the track, see if you can find an advantage that the leader isn't taking. You know, maybe the high line's a little bit quicker, maybe the middle's a little bit quicker. But at this point, I would say it would be a fruitless endeavor, because you're coming up on the pit stops. If you can enter the pits right behind the leader, there's no need to try to race them that hard on the track.
Exactly. Because you at that point, you leave the race down to your pit crew and see how fast they can put you back out on the track. Maybe get yourself ahead of the leader at that point. We are inside of lap 273, just about to hit 274, as this track coming down to our last little bit of time. Still a lot of racing left to determine a whole bunch of things, as there's still about a half second between 1 and 2, about a 1/10 of a second between 2 and 3, and about another, actually right on the bumper, Jonathan Delaney is of Cameron Stone. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. About a second between the two of them, as things are still Delaney's still trying to catch up to the top 3 of this pack. But Benefield running a very good race so far. He's passed when intelligent to do so. He has also had very good car mechanics as of today. His car has been fast all day long, and it continues here.
Absolutely. Things about to heat up on your screen right there. Kevin Steele, again, he's had a very good night tonight, currently running P6, and seems like he's been pretty comfortable right there around 5th, 6th position. That's where he's been the majority of this race. And again, he's out of the points picture, unfortunately, but you got to appreciate the tenacity to get eliminated, and take that hit and then show up the next week and still put on such a good performance that he has. And it's like any blow to his confidence that might have given him, he's over it, and he's back in top form. So it's good to see. But we do have Bryson Hicksbaugh making his way out of pit road. He got that car entirely serviced, and he was one of the first of the leaders. So the question is, does that start that snowball effect you mentioned, Chris? Does that kind of force Adam Benefield's hand? Yes, it does. He's going to come down pit road, leaving Cameron Stone to be the race leader.
Yep, leaving Cameron Stone, but for how long? Because Cameron still has yet to get in. To actually, no, he just pit back. He's still a holdout as well, so he needs to get in as well. But that's going to put, as of right now, Robert Mueller, I think, is going to be the main beneficiary of that, as he's ahead of Bryson Hicksbaugh for the moment. But we'll see how long Hicksbaugh and Miller can hold up the rest of the field. Samuelson still holding on and holding out of the pit row, but not for very long. I would not think, as he's sitting at lap 213 as his last pit lap. Benefield back out on the track. Delaney back out on the track. Miller, Hicksbaugh, Dustin Hall, everyone back that was on the lead lap originally, including Cameron Stone, who's just getting into the pit box himself. He's about to give up first place, all told, as that gap starts to loosen a bit. But Robert Miller looks like he is going to take the overall lead once this is done. And everybody in the top 10 has gone into pit row at this point. So Josh Ward went at 2:34, so he has a little bit of work to do, probably one more pit stop in him before he is done for the day in the top 10.
And that is the difference, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Miller came in one lap before Benefield. You might be wondering why we keep talking about the undercut and how important it can be. This is why. Robert Miller was half a second behind Benefield going into the pits, but because he came in one lap sooner, he had that one lap on fresher tires. Well, you lose about 2 seconds a lap on old tires versus fresh, and that's exactly the benefit that Robert Miller gave himself. So he was able to take the lead. He's got the track position, but now he's coming to the trade-off. He's, for the rest of this race, going to have tires that are one lap older than Adam Benefield. And that doesn't sound like much, but on iRacing and even in real life, one lap makes a difference on tires.
Yeah, you take a look and you talk about the gap that Miller had on Benefield as well, that Benefield had on him. Miller made that up on pit row. There's about a 0.7 of a second difference between what Miller did on pit row and what Benefield did on pit row in Miller's favor. That was part of the reason why Miller was able to get out so much quicker as well and take the lead that he has. He currently has about 2.5 seconds on Adam Benefield. So watch for that to be a thing, and Benefield's going to have to close that gap as he gets closer and closer, but he's doing a good job of closing that gap pretty amicably, as he's got about 1/10 of a second to close at this point.
Yeah, he's going to have to try and close that gap if he can, but right now, a little bit of separation between Miller, Benefield, Delaney, Stone, all have about a second apiece between them. Bryson Hicksbaugh, the closest battle with Cameron Stone, I would say. But Hicksbaugh, like, again, I feel like that car has been off. It hasn't been where Bryson wants it to be. I'm not sure if Bryson set that car up for maybe a cooler track. Maybe he was expecting some overcast. But it's been fighting him all night long, and it's impressive that he's been able to take that car and run in the top 5 with it, as bad as it kind of looks. I mean, I've been following along from my perspective for a while now, and just like at the beginning of the race, I'm watching the front end of that 63 just want to wash out on him, push up the track, and you're not seeing a lot of these other front runners have that issue. You know, Jonathan Delaney, his car just looks planted through the corner. I mean, he's working his way through the turn, perfectly comfortable, not having to fight it at all. So Hicksbaugh trying, absolutely, Hicksbaugh trying to close in on Stone, but right now everything's pretty calm for being immediately after the pit sequence. You know, you compare that to stage 2 where everybody cycled out right with one another. This time they got a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah, a little bit more of a shift in place as far as the pit decisions. And Delaney's working on, that is Benefield in front of him, and actually moved in front of the 53 car that was lapped traffic. So Delaney in the 3 spot gets past 2 lapped cars without any incident. That's good news. He'll have clean air in front of him as he works along this back straightaway. We'll see how long it takes him to get up to the rest of the pack. About 1.5 seconds between him and the second place car of Adam Benefield. Ryan Samuelson rounding up the last 8 cars, and you only have 8 cars on the lead lap at this point. Kevin Steele in front of him. And there's plenty of gap between Kevin Steele and Ryan Samuelson. Dustin Hall, you're only one under 5 seconds behind the leader at this point, or actually 6 seconds behind the leader at this point. So we'll see if he can make up a little bit of time on that. But Dustin Hall seems to really be the only one within any shouting distance of Robert Mueller as far as the top 6 is concerned. Kevin Steele behind him, not really so much. So Robert Mueller, good stuff. Still trying to hold on to that advantage. He's got about a 2-second advantage on Benefield. He seems to be widening at this point.
Yeah, actually, Benefield is closing the gap. When they cycled out of the pits, it was 2.5 seconds. About a lap ago, it was 2.0. Now he's got it down to about 1.9, nearly 1.8 now. So he's closing the gap. The question is he going to be able to sustain this speed? The thing about a situation like this where he's the car behind, he's got to run down the leader. He's using up his tires. He's using up his equipment, pushing that car to catch up to Robert Mueller. Meanwhile, Robert's up there kind of out for a Sunday drive, taking it easy, saving his equipment. So Benefield's closing in, but Robert might have the upper hand.
See how far Benefield lets Mueller go before he starts catching up. Turn number 4 in lap 286 or 287, sorry, as we start to get into lap 288. 3:34 is your end of the race lap. These guys trying to get there without any incident. No yellow flags for cause in this race so far. These guys really have raced a clean race at Texas all day long. Everything from single file, 2 wide, sometimes 3 wide. Everyone has held it together, and I love the clean racing that this promotes because it's been a lot of fun to see those passes and passing when it makes sense. More lap traffic coming for Robert Mueller. He will get ahead of the next one to him, and that puts another cog in the machine for Robert Mueller as he continues to absolutely torch this track and keep now about 1.5 seconds as Benefield has started to work his way forward as well.
Yeah, he's going to have to navigate this traffic as best he can. If he can just get through them better than Benefield, that's all he's got to do. He doesn't have to get through there flawlessly. He doesn't have to slice through them like they're standing still. He's just got to do it better than Benefield. And so far, he's not been able to. Benefield has actually closed in another 0.2 ever since they got into this traffic. Benefield, when they had clear track, brought the gap from 2.5 seconds down to 1.7, so he was catching up. But as soon as they got in this traffic, it was another 0.2 almost immediately. So it seems like right now, the lap traffic not working in Robert Mueller's favor. And you're going to see that a lot. I mean, when it comes to being a lapped car, only the leader makes a difference. The leader can put you another lap down. If he gets around you, then second place passing you doesn't really matter. That's not changing much. So they're going to battle the leader a lot harder than they're going to battle second place because they don't want to go down another lap. That means that they're going to give him a harder time. It's going to allow Benefield to catch up. And then when Benefield does get to the lap traffic, he's not going to have to battle them like Robert did. So it's going to be, again, another kind of card in Benefield's hand that's going to be able to give him an advantage. But I don't know, with as big of a gap as he's going to have to overcome, and I think he will overcome it. He's going to close this gap. You can tell by the timing and scoring. My question is, does he have enough tire left on that car once he gets there? Because he's got to be burning those things up, pushing that car.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting state of being for Benefield. He's pushing it like you said. That makes me wonder about how his resources are going to be as we get towards the end of this race. Benefield working into turn 2, trying to get along this back straightaway, and he will do so. He's got himself Mueller in front of him, but he got lap traffic between him and Mueller. 2 cars exactly between him and Robert Mueller to this point. See how he works it as they get down to about 1 second and 1/3 away from each other at this time. Delaney's just 2 seconds behind Benefield, which is something to keep in mind as he works to try to make a move. Cameron Stone is only 1/10 of a second behind Delaney, and that's another one. Top 4 very close. You could start to watch a battle for the 3 spot if Cameron Stone decides to try to make a move on him. And Hicksbaugh is not out of it yet, but he needs to make up some time, and he needs to do it rather quick. He's 4 seconds behind the He's 4 seconds behind Cameron Stone at this point, about 7.5 behind Robert Miller.
Yeah, he's going to have to really fight to close that gap. He's running out of laps. I mean, at this point, you start falling back. You don't have that much time to make it up. You know, there's no time to recover from mistakes. So it's go time. He's going to have to get on that loud pedal. Also, the battle for Lucky Dog, if we were to get a caution, which, again, I wouldn't count on it, knock on wood, we've gone 295 laps without a caution for cause, but should we get one, Ryan Samuelson is the man at the top of the Lucky Dog podium right now, but Kevin Steele is slowly falling back to the leader, Robert Miller, and before this race is over, at this rate, he may very well go another lap down, so just a quick update on that battle. In the meantime, Robert Miller continuing to just barely shed tenths off of his lead. Benefield closing in little by little. There's the number 16 right there, having just one lap down to the leader. That is the only car separating Miller and Benefield. But 1.1 seconds. So total, since they come out of the pits, he's gained over a second on the leader. You know that car is fast, but not only is he wearing out his tires, but you got to think, Chris, time is running out. We're on that 297 out of 334. If he gets to him, it's going to be real close to the end of this thing.
37 laps to go in the Lone Star State Texas Motor Speedway 100% Cup Series. We're coming up to that 100% mark at Texas. First lap of the playoffs. You guys are just joining us. You've come across a pretty good finish brewing. The names on the left of the grid, highlighted in red, are the playoff drivers. There's one more. Daenerys Hickenbottom is on that list as well. He's sitting in P14 at the time being, but it is the rest of the playoff drivers to watch, including one Robert Miller. Adam Benefield is on there as well, amongst others that are trying to put themselves in good positions going into next week for another playoff race. As these guys get going, top 8 will get knocked down to top 4 after this race is done. Things getting tighter and tighter and more fun as Robert Miller has now lost all but a half-second gap on Adam Benefield, who is really working on getting all the way up to Robert Miller, and that's a great piece of driving from Benefield to cut down that time.
Yeah, it seems like he's turned on the afterburners, really closed in a lot in just the last couple laps. It took him nearly 20 laps to close in just a second, but in those few laps he closed in 6/10. So man, he is flying. He's within drafting he's within drafting range, which doesn't sound like much, but even at 1.5 miles, the draft does help. It does bring you a little bit closer on the straightaways. So he's there. I mean, give him another lap or two, he's going to be on the bumper. Question is, how does he make the move? Does he try to go to the outside? We've seen a few passes on that high line tonight, and it has worked pretty well. And that's kind of the nice thing. Benefield has options here. There's some tracks on the schedule where they're kind of one lane. Passing is very difficult. This hasn't really proven to be one of them. It seems like he can put his car wherever he needs to put it. The question is going to be on the shoulders of Robert Miller. You know, how does he play defense? How does he defend? And he knows that 83 is good in almost every lane on the track.
Quarter of a second now between Benefield and Miller. Benefield's moved up 14 positions from his starting spot, trying to get himself into a position to take the lead over. It's a 2-horse race at this point as we've passed the 3:01 mark for laps. All just 32 and fractions to go in the lap category before we are done at Texas. Miller is looking in his rearview mirror at Adam Benefield, who is absolutely charging full bore at the number 10 car, the 83 car. Very aggressive line to stay behind Miller in the draft. Now we'll see how aggressive he wants to get on these passes and where he wants to pass. All told, with Benefield working right up there with Robert Miller. Is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of fun indeed. This is the battle for everything, and you got to think, Benefield has a lot more to gain in this situation. Robert Miller, he wins. It's for bragging rights. It's for fun, you know. Benefield's in the playoffs. He's in it for the points. If he wins here tonight at Texas, that's going to lock him into the final race at Homestead. He's going to have a shot at the championship, and a good shot, might I add. He's been one of the best cars all year long. This would also mean that he doesn't have to worry about tracks like Martinsville coming up on the schedule, where, again, they're a lottery. You don't know what's going to happen at those short tracks. There could be utter chaos. They could be completely calm. They could be green flag all the way. You never know, but he wouldn't have to worry about it if he can just get around this number 10 car. And he's closed that gap, but he's stalled out at about 0.2 seconds. And again, dirty air is going to stall out your momentum, even if you do have a slightly faster car. We know that much. We've seen it time and time again tonight. But we've also seen Adam Benefield able to overcome that stall in momentum. He's been able to make a lot of impressive moves. Think back to stage 2 when Adam Benefield passed Robert Mueller in 3 and 4 like he was standing still. He got a huge run through the center of the turn, down low towards the apron, and it got him the lead. So if he can recreate a move like that, that might be the race-winning move.
Very well could. Back down to that 0.2 seconds that you alluded to just a second ago. Where do they end up? 1-2, Mueller and Benefield. It is absolutely a two-horse race at this moment. Delaney still about or less than 4 seconds, but still about 4 seconds behind. Very good racing all the way through. Benefield keeping his eye on the 10 car, trying to keep the draft alive as he moves left, moves right, trying to keep himself directly behind. A little bit of mirror driving going on in the rearview mirror of Robert Mueller.
And a little bit of mirror driving indeed, but it's kind of an urge you have to resist. You can't do too much mirror driving, because that is kind of the prime cause of a lot of mistakes. You don't want to miss your mark. You don't want to miss your let-off point or your braking zone just because you're too focused on the guy behind you. But man, this just tightened up even more. 0.13 seconds between them. The lap traffic, DeMar got out of the way. He was very respectful to these leaders. But that's the thing, man. Even if the lap cars do everything in their power to get out of their way, they can still slow you down just a little bit by virtue of dirty air. And that's exactly what happened to Robert Mueller. He is going to be under fire from Adam Benefield. We know how fast Benefield has been in 3 and 4 all night long. That's been his power zone on this track, where he's made a lot of the moves that he's made. And now they got another lap car in front of him. That's Brandon Pierce. They're in 10th place. He's going to be going 2 laps down with this overtake. And that didn't slow Robert Mueller down too much. So a bit of a missed opportunity for the 83. But look at this, Chris. A huge run out of the corner. Coming down the straightaway. He might get to the quarter panel.
He very well could. Dangerous turn right here. They're within 0.14 seconds of each other. It is Mueller, Benefield, Delaney, 1, 2, 3, Cameron Stone, 4, Dustin Hall, 5. Hall has made a bit of a run to get himself into the top 5. Hicksbaugh is stuck in the 6th spot as those two go back and forth, and Kevin Steele been knocked back to the 7th position, or so it would seem at this point. These guys absolutely racing hard. Benefield gets knocked back a little bit as he's now about a quarter of a second behind once more. Good defense played by Robert Mueller to keep him behind him. How long is he going to be able to hold off Benefield?
That is the question, and we're going to find out the answer soon enough. Again, I got to think back to how hard Benefield had to push his car just to get here. He's at the bumper. He has a chance to make the pass, but for 50 laps or so, he was pushing that car to its absolute limit, meaning he was putting more wear and tear, more strain on his tires than Robert Mueller. And I think that's the one advantage that the 10 car has right now, because every other advantage goes to that 83. He can watch the number 10. He can follow his line. He can figure out where he'd be able to make the move, where he's faster. He can study the leader. That is not a privilege that the number 10 has. And when the lap traffic does come around, again, they're going to race Robert Mueller a whole lot harder than they're going to race Benefield. So another advantage to that 83. The way everything's going to even out, I'm not sure, but this is one heck of a battle. Truth be told, with the rate that the number 83 was closing in, I thought he was going to make the pass a long time ago. I thought once he got there, that was it. But no, Mueller has held on phenomenally, playing some great defense for a number of consecutive laps.
See how long he can hold him off, though. Down to 21 laps to go. At Texas, got lap traffic coming up ahead of Mueller. This is a chance for Benefield to take the inside. He's going to be on the inside door-to-door with Robert Mueller, and he does take the 1 spot. With 21 laps to go, Benefield has taken the full 1 spot on the inside of Robert Mueller, and Benefield is your new race leader. He's led a majority of the race laps to this point, adding more to his total and he's going to get a nice jump as he has about a quarter second between him and Robert Mueller, who can't keep pace.
It was an amazing effort by Robert Mueller. He played some great defense, but that 83 has been so fast all night long, and it's not surprising to see him make that move, especially where he made it, going into turns 3 and 4. That's where he's been so fast all night long. There's a little bit more lap traffic in front of them that could play in. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, it looks like the 83 has the better car out of the two. Robert Mueller not letting him drive away. He's staying within that 2/10 gap that we kind of saw Benefield hover in for a while. And look at this huge run coming out of 3 and 4. The number 10 had a lot of speed in the center of the corner. Now it seems like it's stalled out. So that's kind of interesting. I thought when I seen that burst of speed, he was going to close that gap. But no, he falls back to about 0.2 seconds. That car still in front of both of these guys. That's number 37, Jason Taylor. This is a car who's kind of been struggling with the handling all night. I'm curious to see how he kind of handles letting these leaders go. He's going to go up high. They're going to take the bottom, and he's not even going to fight it. He's going to let these guys duke it out on their own. Very respectable move there. But Miller's starting to fall back a little bit more now. 0.3 seconds. That could be all she wrote.
Very well could be. Delaney in the 3 spot, 4 seconds behind your leader to this point. He is the other stage winner. Benefield won the second stage, Delaney won the first stage, and Benefield's in a good spot to win the third stage as well if things continue the way they are. Robert Mueller trying not to let him go, though. 0.35 seconds between 1 and 2 at the moment as we go into lap 317 of 334. 17 laps to go at Texas, and things getting a little bit tighter as we go along, but it is absolutely at this point a 2-horse race between Adam Benefield and Robert Mueller.
And we got a battle for the final step on the podium. Cameron Stone got to the inside of Jonathan Delaney. And again, Jonathan Delaney trying to defend on the outside. We've seen him do it before tonight. And he's going to just barely fall back in line. He should have a bit of a run coming out of the corner. Can he complete the crossover back to the bottom? They are going to be too wide for third place. This time the preferred line goes to Delaney. That's the advantage he afforded himself with that great crossover. But that 57 is not going to give him much room. He's going to pinch him down. Contact. Door slamming through 3 and 4. That's only going to make the tempers flare even more as they work their way through the quad oval across the stripe, taking 16 to go for both of these drivers. Jonathan Delaney still has the preferred line, but that 57 is fast up top. He's been able to play some amazing defense. And still, Chris, look at that. Pinching him down to the bottom. Not giving an inch.
That is a very, very tight race for the 3 spot. Delaney trying...
All right, we may be having some technical difficulties here. Seems like Chris may be having some connection issues. I was having some connection issues earlier, I'm sure. It was very audible on the broadcast. I probably cut out a little bit because I noticed my connection bars dropping. So Discord is seeming to have some issues tonight. Hopefully Chris can get his connection fixed up, hop back up here. But for now, the battle for third continuing as Cameron Stone's going to fight back on the bottom. The number 9 continually trying to keep that podium position. They're battling with everything they have, and neither driver seems to be budging. They're going to take the stripe for 13 to go. And while these drivers continue to battle, the race for the lead has not changed much. Benefield's still out front. 0.5 seconds is the gap back to Robert Mueller. But the show is the battle for third. These two drivers are still side by side. They have not given an inch in the last 10 laps, I would say, as they continue to try and claim that podium for themselves. Right now it's Delaney with the advantage. He finally got out front. Can he keep that advantage? Is he going to be able to keep the 57 in his mirror? We'll find out. Again, track map on the bottom right. You can see where everybody is in relation to one another. And I will clarify, I shouldn't have to clarify, but I will, that the numbers in the circles on the minimap, those are car numbers, not position numbers. There is no 83rd position, so just keep that in mind as these drivers continue to fight. Cameron Stone not letting him get away. He's staying pretty much at the bumper, not quite close enough to make the move yet.
We are getting closer here. I'm working on getting back into the race. My feline companion decided that my tower didn't need to be on anymore, so hit the power button, and here we are. So we are getting back. I'm getting back into the race, so I do want to lean on you a little bit as things are getting back going. Benefil still ahead. Miller in the 2 spot, but you mentioned the race for 3 is where it's at. 15/100ths of a second between Cameron Stone and Jonathan Delaney as things get tighter along that particular race. But Robert Miller is still about a half second behind Adam Benefil with about 13 laps to go, or about 10 laps to go.
Yeah, not much racing left. Here he goes, Cam on the outside trying to make it stick, but he's going to lose a little bit of time in the center of the corner. Let's see if he can get a good run out. And man, that car is ill handling. Look at that steering wheel. He is cranking that thing through the corner, even counter steering at times. And that's what happens when these tires get worn. That car's going to slip slide around, and it's not going to be very comfortable. He's sticking right with Jonathan Delaney. Leader took the stripe for 9 to go. These guys just took it right there. Gap to second place for the leader is still 0.5, so we're not missing anything up front as we follow this battle. It's kind of hard to tell where each driver has the advantage here, Chris. You know, with Adam Benefil and Robert Miller, it was pretty clear. Benefil was faster in 3 and 4. Robert Miller was faster in 1 and 2. But with these guys, it seems like it's changing all the time. Sometimes Cam gets a good run through 1. Sometimes he gets a good run through 3. But ultimately, these cars are just slip sliding around, and it seems like they're just barely hanging on.
Yeah, very, very tight race all the way through. As we get things a little bit closer, we're on lap 327 of 334. Just 7 laps remaining at Texas. Delaney still holding on to that 3 spot after he overtook Cameron Stone by about 15/100ths of a second is the difference there. Still about a half second between Miller and between Benefil. And they're trying to find some separation there. Kevin Steele sitting in the last lead lap spot. Plenty of time behind Bryson Hicksbaugh. As Hicksbaugh has about 6 seconds, or about 9 seconds in front of Kevin Steele, but about 3 seconds behind Dustin Hall in the 5. And see how aggressive Robert Miller gets trying to catch up to Adam Benefil. That's going to be my story coming up here. Delaney and Stone still fighting neck and neck though.
Neck and neck indeed. The gap only 0.2 between them. Robert Miller now 6 tenths back, so we've slipped back about a tenth. But still very close in pace to the leader. He's actually going to bring it back down to 0.5. So the battle for the lead not over yet. That is a gap that he could make up if he finds something, but he's going to have to find it quick. 6 laps to go. Jonathan Delaney, Cameron Stone continuing their fight. As on the screen right there, there's the number 10. You can get a better idea how far back he is, and it's not far at all. I mean, where he is right now, 0.48 seconds, 1 lapped car, battling the 83 is all it would take for him to close that gap, get back up there, and possibly reclaim the lead. And there is a lap car in front of them. They're probably going to get to him before the end of this race. Could be nothing. Maybe it doesn't change this at all. Maybe it changes it a lot. That's the thing with lap cars. You never really know. Robert Miller probably hoping that is the saving grace that he needs. 0.58 seconds at the line is the difference as we take 4 to go through 1 and 2. The leader's going to go side by side with the lap traffic, and that is the number 44, Randy Drumhiller. He's going to let him go, no issues. Randy Drumhiller having a very clean race out there. He has been having a pretty solid night there in 16th. Kept his nose clean like a lot of these drivers have. Bringing that car home clean. You'll love to see it. That 57, here's where some lap traffic may be interesting. This could change the battle. 57 on the bumper of the 9, and they got Brandon Pierce right in front of them.
Yes, they do. Could be a lot of fun. Robert Miller still trying to chase down Adam Benefil. Still about half a second between the two of them. But the one to watch, Cameron Stone, Jonathan Delaney, with about 0.3 between the two of them. But Delaney seems to be catching a groove and putting some distance between. We are down to the last 2 laps in this race as they are going to cross the start finish for the 332nd time today. We're just about ready to come out with the white flag here in just a little bit of time as Adam Benefil still has about a 0.6 of a second lead, almost 0.7 at this point. Big difference as Beneful starts to get some separation at the literal best time he can. Cameron Stone seems to have lost some time to Jonathan Delaney, so things seem to be starting to solidify here in the positions they are in with not much time left.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting a little bit of separation right when the leader wants it. It's a great way to put it. I mean, right now, to not have any pressure from behind, that is what the 83 wants. Final time around this track, down the backstretch for the final time. He's going to get around a couple more lap cars. Now it's just 2 more turns, 3 and 4. Adam Benefiel will be a winner at Texas, but nothing set in stone until he crosses that stripe. Coming out of turn 4, past the pit road entry, Adam Benefiel is going to punch his ticket to Phoenix and win here at Texas.
And that is very good work. Adam Benefiel, your Texas winner with 100% Cup Series. Mueller, Delaney, 2-3. Cameron Stone, 4. Dustin Hall looks like he's going to eventually finish in the 5 spot, with Bryson Hicksbaugh in the 6 spot. Kevin Steele behind him, and that's your last lead lap car. But a great run for Adam Benefiel. 2 stage wins and a race win to go along with that. Delaney had a solid day as well, his 3rd in this 3rd stage. But Benefiel gets the donuts. He is the winner at Texas Motor Speedway, and that is going to finish things off for this race as you see him start to celebrate in front of the start-finish line in his victory lap. Fun to be had for the 83.
And it's probably a very satisfactory win knowing that he's going to be in Phoenix. We got the official final running order. We'll go ahead and run through that real quick before we get into any driver interviews. We've got Adam Benefiel as the race winner. Robert Mueller just barely coming up short, though it was a valiant effort. 0.6 back in second. Jonathan Delaney bringing it home on the podium after getting a little bit of damage. Cameron Stone 4th, Dustin Hall 5th, Bryson Hicksbaugh 6th, Kevin Steele 7th, Ryan Samuelson is going to be the first car lap down there in 8th, Sean O'Brien Jr. 9th, Brandon Pierce, and rounding out the rest of the field, Jason Taylor, Kyle Ammon, Preston McRae, Damaris Hickenbottom, Chad Sanner, and Randy Drumhiller are the final drivers to finish the race. Then you have the contenders who did not bring the car to the end of the race. They pulled it behind the wall. You've got Charles Eaton, or Josh R. Ward, Charles Eaton, Cody Strom, Alex Princeton, Dalton Mobley, Tyler Pinsonneau, and James A. Mullins. With that, we're going to try to get some driver interviews. If I can locate, let's see, 3rd place, Jonathan Delaney. Let's see if we can bring him in here. John Delaney, you got a copy?
I do.
Well, John, it was a good night overall. Good points night. Pretty solid start to your round of 8. You got a stage win there at the beginning. Walk me through your race, man.
It was, we had an up and down race. First stage, we were really good. We were able to get the lead from Adam on pit stops. I got the stage win. And then out of 4, I don't know really what happened, but me and Adam made contact, and I hit the outside wall. Got me 26 seconds of damage. Car was handling terrible, and I was just down on straightaway speed. So I couldn't really fix my damage till the end of stage 2. So I was pretty slow, running like 6th or 5th there, and then came down pit road, fixed the damage, made some adjustments to the car. I was kind of able to stay with Adam and Bryson, or Adam and Robert and Cam towards the end there, and then pit stops happened again. Got ahead Cam. I put on a lot of tape to try and make sure I had enough straightaway speed to stay in front of him, and I was able to do that. We had a good battle there. That was a lot of fun with Cam. So, but all in all, I'm pretty happy, coming back from the amount of damage we had.
It was impressive. I saw the damage on the car. It kind of felt like it was probably holding you back, but you still brought it up to the podium, which not a lot of drivers could have done that. So you got to hold your head high on that. Very impressive, and again, a great start to your round of 8. How do you feel about some of the tracks coming up on the schedule before we get to Phoenix?
Pretty good. We have Kansas next week. I was really good there last time. It's a fun track, multi-groove racing there. You can just about run any line. The top might be a little bit more dominant than the bottom, though, so it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be a good race there. And then we have Kansas. Oh my gosh, Martinsville. I'm sorry. I was good there early in the year as well. I think we should have a good run there. So if we just keep doing what we're doing, try not to get in wrecks or do any damage to the car, we should be in the top final four.
John, you going back and forth with Cameron a little bit in that for that race for third spot. Were you guys saying anything back and forth to each other on the radios, or was it more of just a clean race and a little bit of a pat on the back, just real good time? It seemed like you guys were going back and forth. It was really competitive there for a while. Just kind of curious if anything was said.
No, nothing was said. Towards the end, we said good race to each other. He said he had a lot of fun. I did too. It's just how this package is, and on iRacing with the dirty air, it's really hard to pass someone with dirty air, and I was unable to pass Adam in the first stage because of it. But as soon as I got the clean air, it's perfectly fine. So it's always a factor at these 1.5 miles and sometimes even the short tracks too that you have to worry about.
All right. Well, John, before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah. Thank you guys for broadcasting this. Everyone home watching. Everyone at Lockdown Racing for the set this week. It was really quick, really quick. Probably the fastest car on track. Cam for racing there. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for him keeping it clean. The admins for putting on this league. Mom, dad, brother, Tanya and Bob, grandma watching. So and that's all I have.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, John. Congratulations on the podium and good luck in the next race.
Thank you, guys.
Third place out of the booth. We're going to move on up to second place, Robert Mueller. Let's see how he feels about this battle that he had with a race winner. Robert Mueller, you got a copy?
Hello.
Well, Robert, you put on one heck of a show for us up in the booth. You and Adam were just battling with everything you had, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Was it as fun to drive as it was to watch?
Oh, that was a fun race. Fun enough to where my wrists are killing me, and I'm sweating. I'm ready to go take a nap and have a drink and relax and have some fun, because that was a fun race. That was one of the better races I've had here so far.
You guys were back and forth through a majority of that third stage, and even through the second stage, you and Adam, for really, I'd say a majority of this race. Were any dialogue back and forth between the two of you, or did you kind of just have an understanding of each other?
Oh, we were just talking. Like, it's just we were talking to each other, having some fun. But I mean, it was understanding like what we can and can't get away with, what we need to do when we're around each other, and like how to race each other, that kind of stuff. Like, he understood that I'm giving him all the dirty air in the world when he was catching me on the third stage, and and he knew he was trying to pack as much air in my spoiler as I could to get me as loose as he did, which he did. He selfly did it going into one there, and I couldn't catch the car at that point, so I just had to ride it for all it's worth and hit the apron, and there he went by me. So that's how he planned it. He did it right. I mean, I figured that's what he was going to do. I couldn't handle it. The car it was way too loose at that point. But I definitely didn't have the short run that they hit either. I had to really work on my right rear to make sure it had the pace I needed at the end of the run, and it looked like it worked because I was digging there, especially on that first stage. That was fun, passing everybody. I might have to do that again.
Absolutely. Now I got to ask, Robert, you won last week. You almost win this week. Are you going to do any more races this year? Are you going to show up next week?
That's the hope that we keep doing this. Next week is Kansas, so ew, but maybe. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't mind Kansas. It's just one line only, like always. It's I'll try to be at Kansas. I'll be working all week, so I may not have practice, but we'll see. Everything's always we'll see with me.
Alrighty. Well, before we let you go, Robert, anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Shout out to Cameron Stone, because he actually dropped his set down, because I really didn't practice very much or build a set very much this week. So Cameron dropped his set earlier in the week. I'm like, all right, Cam, that's a good set. I didn't touch it at all. Hope he's mad, because I hope he worked on it so much that he made himself slower, because I didn't touch his set at all except for one little adjustment. And there we go. So shout out to Cameron for the set. Love him to death. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Robert, and congratulations on your P2.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Second place, finisher out of the booth. Pretty ecstatic, not always do you have the runner-up finisher so kind of excited about it, but he had a lot of fun. You could tell he was having a blast out
Yeah.
on track, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So
Yeah.
you'll love to see it. We're gonna bring up our race winner, Adam Benefiel. Adam Benefiel, you got a copy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, Adam, you couldn't have done it much better. You got a stage 2 win, won the race, locked yourself into Phoenix. Tell me about it.
We did what we had to do. I mean, basically what it boils down to. Especially not going to be here for next week because of a real life race that I got to go to and attend. So, but no, man, we had a great car. I mean, it's one of the cars that was, in the stable for Logan this past Tuesday for the Coke Championship. So we knew it was a good car. I wasn't expecting Robert to be that fast, but he was fast. I was surprised. I hate to see Jason Taylor have bad luck. We ran NIS last night, and that son of a gun right there had a hot rod. He was fast, stupid fast. But it was, you know, we got the W, so that's cool. Found out I didn't know this, but we advanced to the Final Four, so that's a relief. That's cool. Set out that was the goal at the beginning of the year, and we're there.
Yeah, good racing either way. And anything you said you're not going to be at Kansas next week? Are there any tracks you're looking forward to over the next couple of weeks as you get towards the last part of this race, this season?
I mean,
You got Martinsville. You got
yeah, probably, yeah, Martinsville. That's cool. Last time I was there, I think things. I think it turned into fuel mileage, if I'm not mistaken. A fuel mileage race at freaking Martinsville. Um,
of all things.
yeah, exactly. So, you never know what can happen there. There's a lot of, you know, pissed off people in the league at, each other. So it might be, it's fun being able to go in there and just sit back and relax and just focus on Phoenix. But be doing a lot of work at Phoenix. We're I had a decent run there, beginning of the year. But I just something about that place. I really wish I'd just fill it up with water. And I hate that place, but it's where we got to race, so we got to figure out how to get around it.
Absolutely, got to figure out the track, and if there's anybody that can figure it out, I'm pretty sure it's you, Adam, because you've been definitely one of the cars to beat all year long, and it's going to be quite the showdown. Yeah, when we get to Phoenix, it'll be fun to watch. Before we let you go, Adam, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah. Just the guys here in the league that's helped me. Dustin Hall, Brandon Pierce. Looks like Team Conti cars top 10. So I just seen that on the results. That's pretty good. The other Team Conti guys for letting me and Dustin come over here and have fun all year. WR1. It's been a great year with them. We're gonna ride it out, Martinsville and Homestead, and then my deal with them ends until we figure out where me and Conti will be driving for next year. But thanks to Kevin and D for putting this on. You guys for uh, broadcasting it and then letting me come in here and chit chat. So just everybody that watches and you know all the competitors for letting me kick their butts once again.
Yeah. All right, Adam. Well, congratulations on the win, and hopefully we're talking to you again at the next race that you attend under similar circumstances.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Adam Benefiel out of the booth. Pretty subdued. Pretty subdued for a guy who just whooped the field. But hey, that's Adam
Yeah.
Benefiel. Before we close out our broadcast, Chris, you got any closing thoughts?
I mean, a lot of fun. Texas is a fast track, and these guys handled it like true professionals. Not a single caution for cause on the entire track. And these guys knew how to race this track. They knew how to race with each other, and they were fully capable. They were fully in control and had a grip on what their car was able to do and what they were able to do with traffic around them. A couple of 3 wide spots, everyone played nice, and not a single incident or issue on the track. So a lot of fun to see that clean racing for 334 laps of it at just about full speed the entire time.
Absolutely. Leave it to the 100% Cup Series to break the Texas curse and have a caution-free race. It was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't quite expect it to be as exciting as it was, but man, it really was, I think, one of the standout races of the year. But that's going to do it for our race coverage here at Texas for the 100% Cup Series. I'm Andre Grambush, joined alongside Chris Curtis and Mason Hicksbaugh pushing the buttons this time. Carlos was a little bit under the weather, so Mason was kind enough to step up to the plate and make sure that this broadcast was brought to your televisions and computers at home. So a big shout out and a big thank you to Mason Hicksbaugh, and a big thank you to everybody who tuned in and watched. We'll catch you next week.